Chapter 3656. People couldn't believe their ears, especially the experts from the Spirit Rune Pavilion. The Pavilion Master was already dead. Was Xiaqin still not willing to let the Spirit Rune Pavilion off? Xiaqin, we are willing to worship you as Pavilion Master. But you can't share the sacred treasure that our ancestors left behind with the public. That really is unbearable. One of the Spirit Rune Pavilion's elders couldn't help stepping forward. That's right. You're our new Pavilion Master. Everything here is yours, so there's no need to do this, cried out another elder. To them, what was important wasn't who the Pavilion Master was. What was important was that the giant tree known as the Spirit Rune Pavilion didn't collapse. It had to be known that if the Spirit Rune Pavilion's sacred land was open to the public, tens of thousands of ancient talismans and tomes would be lost. The talismans of the desolate era were priceless treasures left behind by their ancestors, so how could they be shared with the public? This proposal of Xiaqin's moved the hearts of the other sections. However, they didn't dare to randomly speak here. The Spirit Rune Pavilion's sacred land had been locked for countless years. That was why, while they did desire it, they had never thought of obtaining this ancient inheritance. Ever since the gate to the sacred land was opened, these powers started forming a good relationship with the Spirit Rune Pavilion. Their goal was obvious. The fact that the Spirit Rune Pavilion had opened their holy land practically set it in stone that they would rise to the top of the heavenly talisman star field. It was only a matter of time. If these sects sucked up to them now, they would still be in time. Hopefully, their sects wouldn't eventually be erased due to not having a good relationship with this future overlord. This was also why Gongsun Xian and Gongsun Zi had chosen to use this occasion to make a move on Xiaqin. They had been hoping to use these people to deal with him together. After all, it was a chance for them to show their loyalty. However, nothing went as they had hoped. This particular scheme had ended before even starting. In any case, these people truly were moved by the thought of obtaining the treasures within the sacred land. In truth, there's no need for junior brother Xiaqin to do this. All talisman cultivators are a family. If there's anything that one doesn't understand, everyone can study it together. Opening up the secrets of the Spirit Rune Pavilion does seem a bit inappropriate, said a half-step divine venerate. Read the most.d version of this novel and other amazing translated novels from the original source at com. After all, the Spirit Rune Pavilion possesses the most ancient inheritance of the heavenly talisman star field. It needs its own solid foundation, said another elder. All of them were courteous. They were clearly saying that they wouldn't be so greedy. They didn't want to offend the Spirit Rune Pavilion. Just sharing a few talismans would be more than enough. Their goal was to get some soup while the Spirit Rune Pavilion took the meat. On the other hand, the expressions of the experts from weaker sects weren't very good. If this happened, they probably wouldn't get any benefits. Let alone soup, they wouldn't even get to lick the bottom of the bowl. In the end, it was power that counted. People like them didn't even have the right to interject. They could only endure. However, they were all surprised when Xiaqin said, "Well, I came to the Spirit Rune Pavilion only to learn. My goal has always been to follow my boss. Even if this grandfather and granddaughter duo didn't die today, I wouldn't be staying here. Also, when I said that there won't be a Spirit Rune Pavilion after today, it isn't because of my enmity with the two of them. It is because the Spirit Rune Pavilion's existence is a disgrace for the heavenly talisman star field." Ah! Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what Xiaqin was saying. Just how was the Spirit Rune Pavilion a disgrace? When I opened the Sacred Land's gate, I saw a record left behind by a senior. That senior had sealed himself in the Sacred Land right before his death. His physical body remained, but he had no head. When I read what he left behind, I learned that he had no face to see future generations, so he intentionally destroyed his head. When Xiaqin opened the gate to the Sacred Land, he saw a corpse and a sealed suicide note. The note recorded the origin of this sacred land. The truth was that in that ancient battle, every sect had participated. Back then, the Spirit Rune Pavilion was actually only a third-rate sect. If they only didn't join the others in that battle, that would be one thing. But they actually took advantage of the chaos to sneak into some other sects and steal their secrets. Those sects that they stole from were essentially all third-rate sects as well. They didn't dare to go to second-rate sections. The battle from back then was truly apocalyptic. Although the human race won in the end, it was a miserable victory. The supreme sects and experts fought to the death and were wiped out. Even amongst other sects, less than 1% of their inheritance remained. The line of talisman cultivators then received a heavy blow and never managed to recover from the loss. As for the Spirit Rune Pavilion, due to not participating in the battle and sneaking in some benefits, they managed to preserve quite a bit of their power. At that time, the Pavilion Master hid all the treasures that he had stolen. Those treasures could not see the light of day in that era. Otherwise, others would all know what the Spirit Rune Pavilion had done. Thus, those secret treasures were passed down one era after another, and they still didn't dare to take them out. The secret of these treasures was passed down from Pavilion Master to Pavilion Master only. At the time of the 7th generation Pavilion Master, the 7th generation Pavilion Master made a heavy decision. He directly sealed himself and all the treasures inside, placing a talisman on the gate that was almost impossible to decode. That was the origin of the sacred land. That 7th generation Pavilion Master viewed the actions of his ancestors as a disgrace. Hence, he sealed himself inside and wait for a destined person to expose the truth. As the Pavilion Master, he didn't have the courage to reveal the truth himself. But continuing to keep the secret was something that his conscience would not allow him to do. Ultimately, he made such a decision, leaving everything to future generations. When they heard this explanation, the Spirit Rune Pavilion's experts were dismayed. They couldn't believe that their ancestors would do such a horrible thing. It was everyone's first time hearing that the Spirit Rune Pavilion actually possessed such a dirty history. So much time had passed, so they didn't know how they should judge the Spirit Rune Pavilion's ancestors. They were cowards who feared death, but it was due to them that these ancient inheritances were preserved. However, to say that this was an accomplishment would only cause people to look at them with scorn for their methods. These treasures are the collective wisdom of our ancestors, so it should be shared amongst all talisman cultivators. According to the 7th generation Pavilion Master's will, when these ancient tomes see the light of day once more, they should be shared with everyone to atone for the sins of the Spirit Rune Pavilion. Hence, I will act according to the 7th generation Pavilion Master's will. This learning will be shared with everyone who wishes to learn. Perhaps that is the only way for the Spirit Rune Pavilion to apologize for their crimes. Other than that, the reason I said that the Spirit Rune Pavilion is gone after today is because I don't want the disciples and elders to carry the sins of their ancestors. Thus, the Spirit Rune Pavilion is hereby disbanded. Everyone can find new homes. After saying that, countless people were delighted. Whether it was to Xia Chen or the 7th generation Pavilion Master, they were filled with gratitude. Such magnanimity was admirable. Let's go. We'll take a look at the sacred land together. Xia Chen led everyone to a hidden location. Chapter 3657. Upon arriving at the Spirit Rune Pavilion's sacred land, people saw endless ancient tomes and talismans. They also saw a headless skeleton. At this moment, all of the Heavenly Talisman Starfield's experts walked over to the skeleton and kowtowed. They felt great admiration for this senior. As a Pavilion Master, he crushed his own head to atone for his ancestors' sins. That wasn't even his own sin, yet he was willing to give up his life to make up for the sins of his ancestors. How many people were capable of assuming such a burden? Upon entering the sacred land, Xia Chen looked around. Nothing had changed. He knew that while Gong Sun Xian and Gong Sun Zi were busy hunting him down, they weren't in the mood to investigate these things. Anyway, they simply didn't have the power to study these things. In front of everyone, Xia Chen made an inventory of ancient books, talismans, tomes, inscriptions, and other treasures. Starting today, these things would be shared amongst all talisman cultivators. They could flip through them, copy them, and do whatever they wanted with them. But the treasures had to stay here. This sacred land now belonged to everyone. Anyone was qualified to study these, but they definitely could not allow anyone to bring them away or damage them. This sacred land would be the sacred land of the entire Heavenly Talisman Starfield. 18 top sects would join forces to guard it, and they couldn't let the slightest accident happen to this place. The people to copy them had to be experts of the top 18 sections. They also had to monitor anyone coming and going. If anyone even dared to form a wicked thought toward this place, they would be the enemy of the entire heavenly talisman starfield and summarily executed. Xiaqin spent 10 days making a copy of all of these things. Many of these talismans were things that he had studied, but there were many that he had neglected due to not having any use for them at the time. He would have to study them in the future slowly. The Spirit Rune Pavilion signboard was torn down during this time. As for the resources in the treasury, Xiaqin ordered people to directly exchange them for money and distribute it amongst people. A slightly bigger portion was given to those poorer sects, while those powerful sects were given a bit less. That was because those with power didn't need to worry about running out of money, while the poorer ones had difficulty just surviving. Xiaqin hoped to lessen the pressure on them at least a bit. As for Xiaqin himself, he didn't take any portion. He even exchanged a few of his own valuable things for money to distribute. To use his words, he had come to the Spirit Rune Pavilion with nothing. Now that he was leaving, he didn't want to take anything other than knowledge. There was nothing he could do about the Spirit Rune Pavilion being disbanded. At least, he could feel a bit more at peace if he did this. Countless people felt admiration for Xiaqin's actions. They also sighed over how blind Gong Sunzi was. Just how many women would dream of having such a good husband? But she actually wanted to kill him. In the end, she simply destroyed herself. Read this novel and other amazing translated novels from the original source at com. Once the copies were done, Xiaqin accepted an invitation from the senior experts to expound on the Tao. Xiaqin then shared his own experiences and knowledge with everyone. This one Tao discussion lasted 3 days and nights. Countless experts came to listen. Seeing those experts' reverent and worshipful appearances, Guoran was jealous. Showing off silently really is the strongest. I thought that I already did very well, but this fellow immediately tossed me into the dust. Where is the justice? Long Chen and Guoran sat in a restaurant, staring at the sea of figures around Xiaqin. Long Chen smiled. Xiaqin is using his real ability, using runes to enter the Tao. Every single one of his words contains profundities and gives food for thought. As for you? Me? What about me? Did you see that I used a single arm to beat up Bloodkill Hall's #1 genius? Quibbled Guoran stubbornly. Give it up. That Ji Wuing was an idiot. I refuse to believe that he's the Bloodkill Hall's #1 genius. Unless Imputa got crap in his head, he wouldn't raise such a pig. Let me put it to you this way. I mentioned my fight with the 9 underworld Luocha. Even without a supreme bone, within the same realm, she could easily slay Ji Wuing. Ji Wuing wasn't able to unleash even a fraction of his supreme bone's power before fighting you in a direct clash like a dumb dog. Have you seen such a stupid assassin before? Asked Long Chen. Well, that doesn't matter. He said that he's the Bloodkill Hall's #1 expert, so he must be the Bloodkill Hall's #1 expert. Although Guoran continued quibbling, his tone weakened a great deal. Through this reminder, it truly seemed that there were some problems with this fellow. Was an assassin who fought people directly really an assassin? I've seen the 9 underworld Hall's palace master, Liao Bensong. I've also seen the Bloodkill Hall's palace master, Imputa. To tell the truth, both of them gave me a similar sense of pressure. It's simply that in terms of intelligence, Imputa is far ahead of Liao Bensong. Perhaps I'd believe it if Ji Wuing was from the 9 underworld hall, but if you were to say that he was from the Bloodkill Hall and someone that Imputa personally taught, I'd refuse to believe it even if you beat me to death. Long Chen shook his head. Boss, are you saying that he wasn't from the Bloodkill Hall? Was he a fake? Asked Guoran. No. His movement art is truly the Bloodkill Hall's technique. Furthermore, those people that I killed that day were also true assassins of the Bloodkill Hall, said Long Chen. Boss, you're confusing me. Is Ji Wuing from the Bloodkill Hall or not? Asked Guoran. Tisich, I'm confused too. He's definitely from the Bloodkill Hall, but I have no idea what Imputa raised such an idiot for, said Long Chen, feeling vexed. Imputa was a crafty old fox. He definitely wouldn't raise such an idiot. But it was impossible for someone with a supreme bone to appear in the Bloodkill Hall and have Imputa not notice. So the question was, what was his goal? Even Long Chen couldn't see through Imputa. That damn fatty had a stomach full of sinister schemes. Long Chen had to be wary of him. Who cares? Imputa is just a world king. Do we need to fear him? Guoran shrugged the confusion off. However, Long Chen shook his head. Your ego is getting inflated. Let me tell you, your performance this time was only so perfect because Ji Wuing was cooperating with you idiotically. It doesn't mean that you really have the power of a supreme expert. Other than that, you should not view Imputa as inferior just because you've seen some half-step divine venerates. You should understand that all those people are immortal cultivators, while Imputa is a god cultivator. He has believers throughout the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Even though he is a world king, his faith energy allows him to unleash the full power of a world domain divine item. World domain divine items are said to possess enough power to destroy an entire prefecture. Have you seen such power yet? No, not yet. All the half-step divine venerates you've seen are immortal cultivators. Since you haven't seen a true god cultivator yet, you can't imagine how terrifying they are. As for an expert like Imputa, he can sweep through those half-step divine venerates. Don't get too confident, or you'll suffer a miserable defeat, warned Long Chen. Guoran truly was growing too confident with his new supreme bone. Long Chen had to knock him down a bit, or this fellow would really think that he was unrivaled. 3 days later, Xia Chen finished expounding the Tao. In front of countless reverent gazes, the 3 of them left the heavenly talisman star field. In a dark and secluded palace, Imputa was sitting in a swirl of white mist. That white mist was made of faith energy. Master, my supreme bone has finally awakened. Another figure silently appeared within the palace just like a specter. If Long Chen and the others were present, they would definitely be shocked because this person was the person that Guoran had just slain, Ji Wuing. Chapter 3658. However, this Ji Wuing looked colder and more reserved than the other Ji Wuing. His eyes were like those of a devil. Within this dark palace, they emitted a spectral light that would give others chills. Those eyes did not appear to be the eyes of a human. They were like those of a wild beast, filled with a thirst to kill as if he lived to kill. Imputa smiled and nodded. Excellent. Your little brother's talent has finally been reclaimed by you. You should thank Long Chen. I will surely thank him. I'll use my brother's hand to kill him and express how grateful I am. That man also smiled. These 2 were twin brothers. They appeared almost identical. However, the one that Guoran had killed was called Ji Wuing, while this one was called Ji Wuming. The latter didn't have the slightest grief over his brother's death. Instead, he was gratified. Let me see your hands, said Imputa. Ji Wuming extended his hands. Both of his palms were covered in heavenly Tao runes, emitting boundless power. Most importantly, there seemed to be some connection between his hands. Good, very good. Your Ji family's bloodline inheritance can only be perfectly displayed by your hands. Your supreme bone can control time, but now your other hand can control space. When you become an immortal king, your supreme bones will undergo a heaven-toppling transformation. At that time, you will no longer have any rivals within the same realm. For you to be able to control space-time, I, Imputa, have finally obtained a successor worthy of carrying on my legacy. When I pass down my full faith energy to you as well, I'll watch as you sweep through everyone in this era. You will turn the Bloodkill Hall into a legend of the assassin world. Imputa laughed delightedly when he looked at Ji Wuming's hands. It's all thanks to Master that I could reach this point. Ji Wuming knelt reverently. There's no need for courteous words between master and disciple. I, Imputa, have no child or heir. You are my only disciple. You are like my son, so what is mine is yours. However, even if you can control both supreme bones, don't get too careless. You need to keep working hard. Once you reach Master's realm, you can assist the divine venerate in his important affairs, said Imputa, feeling gratified. Master, your disciple will become a world king soon and then a divine venerate. Why must you serve others? Wouldn't it be better to be king? When the time comes Silence. Imputa's joyful expression instantly changed. He roared so loudly that the palace quivered. As a result, divine might raged and faith energy gushed out angrily. Ji Wuming was forced to kneel by a terrifying pressure. He couldn't move and was horrified. You cannot be disrespectful to divine venerate Brahma at any time. Otherwise, even if you are my most beloved disciple, I will kill you, shouted Imputa. Yes, yes, disciple understands his mistake. Ji Wuming began to sweat. He kowtowed piously. Only then did Imputa retract his aura. Ji Wuming was terrified inside. At that moment, he finally experienced just how terrifying of an existence his master was. In front of Imputa, he was like an ant. He had previously managed to kill a half-step divine venerate, and now he had even obtained Ji Wuming's supreme bone. With both supreme bones awakening, his confidence instantly soared. He had even felt that his current power might not be inferior to his master's. However, his newfound confidence was instantly shattered. Imputa hadn't even attacked, but just his aura already made him unable to move. Killing him required nothing more than a thought for Imputa. Read this novel and other amazing translated novels from the original source at com. Seeing Ji Wuming quivering and kneeling, Imputa's expression softened. He then patted Ji Wuming's shoulder. Child, remember, you should never form the thought of betraying divine venerate Brahma. He is a mighty and great person who cannot be blasphemed. The reason you could even think of such a thing is because your ego has inflated too much. But a frog in a well cannot speak of the ocean. I will put it frankly to you. The current you is just like a frog at the bottom of a well. Let us not talk of divine venerate Brahma. Even in the same realm, there are many people that you cannot fight right now. You need more tempering. Your arrogance shows that you are still young. However, many people will only ever be young in their lifetime due to that arrogance. They won't get a chance to grow up. Disciple will remember master's teachings, promised Ji Wuming, his head lowered. Imputa looked at him. Why are you hesitating? Say what you want to say. As long as it doesn't offend Lord Brahma, it's fine. Ji Wuming raised his head and nervously said, compared to divine venerate Brahma and master, disciple is naturally a frog at the bottom of a well. The light of a firefly doesn't dare to compete with the moonlight. But you say that there are many people that I cannot match in the same realm? Disciple doesn't quite believe it. Are you saying that I am still not a match for Longchen? Imputa was silent for a moment. Longchen didn't fight in the heavenly talisman star field. But his aura is heavier than before. It was only through an ordinary photographic jade, so it's difficult for me to judge his current strength. You have a pair of supreme bones now. Although you can only control a trace of their space and time energy, you have mastered 70% of my assassination arts. I feel like if you were to fight, you would be relatively even. Victory or defeat would likely depend on luck. How can that be? Is Longchen really so powerful? He's nothing more than an ascender from the lower plane. He has no foundation and has to fight for every bit that he obtains. As for myself, my Ji family is one of the immemorial divine families. I am also the disciple with the purest bloodline. With my family's foundation and your teachings, I've worked day and night at my cultivation. I've never slacked off. And even then, I can only barely match him? Asked Ji Wuming, unable to accept this. It had to be known that Longchen came from the lower plane. The lower plane's spiritual chi, resources, inheritances, and other conditions were all inferior to the immortal worlds. To say that Ji Wuming was only a match for Longchen, wasn't that calling him trash? Longchen is a variant. Let alone you, even I cannot see through him. But when I said that there were others in the same realm who could beat you, I wasn't talking about Longchen. I was talking about Dong Mingyu. Suddenly, Imputa pulled off the clothing on his chest, revealing a terrible wound. Ji Wuming cried out in shock. Master to Wooing equals no trace, no shadow. Wuming equals no life. Chapter 3659. There was a thumb-sized hole in Imputa's chest, and scars stretched out of it like a spiderweb. It looked to be an old injury. This wound pierced all the way through Imputa's body. Even though the outer area had healed, The core still had blood seeping out of it. "Master, how were you injured? Who did it?" Ji Wuming was shocked. "This happened 47,000 years ago. I was stabbed by someone," said Imputa. 47,000 years ago? But Ji Wuming looked at the wound speechlessly. Just who was capable of injuring an expert like Imputa? And even if they could wound him, how were they capable of inflicting a wound that wouldn't heal even after so long? A quick look at calm will leave you more fulfilled. "Master, are you using this wound to warn me not to be arrogant? You want me to reserve myself?" Disciple knows his mistake. Ji Wuming once more apologized. Imputa shook his head. "No, this wound isn't something that I kept intentionally. It is a wound that I am unable to heal. The energy of night dark resides within it, and it is a kind of powerful curse. It won't affect me during the day, but every time the dark night descends, the wound splits open. It has been affecting me for 47,000 years. Otherwise, I would have long since advanced and killed that idiot Liao Bensong." Ji Wuming was completely shocked. What kind of power could resist even his master's faith energy? "Master, who did it?" Yi Wuxing. A name that shakes the heart of countless people in the 9 heavens and 10 lands, the assassin of the night. She has a nickname, Silence of the Night. As soon as you mention the Silence of the Night, everyone from the senior generation quivers. Furthermore, Silence of the Night is an ancient, desolate manifestation. Her night dark energy is one of the most terrifying laws, and this wound she inflicted on me is something that even divine venerate Brahma is unable to heal. As long as Yi Wuxing doesn't die, her curse will follow me forever. This is why I have only mobilized my avatars for so many years. My true body must remain here. I have been accumulating faith energy all these years in preparation of removing her curse. Other than killing her, this is the only way to break this curse, said Imputa. Ji Wuming's heart pounded wildly. He had not expected there to be someone so terrifying in this world. He finally understood what it meant for there always to be heavens beyond the heavens. Imputa straightened his clothes once more. He lightly said, "In that battle 47,000 years ago, I almost fell to Yi Wuxing's hands. If divine venerate Brahma didn't come in time, there would no longer be an Imputa in this world. Since I haven't seen her in so many years, Yi Wuxing has probably advanced to the divine venerate realm. However, I have also profited from this injury. I had more time to focus on spreading my believers and gathering faith energy. While my realm stayed stuck at the peak of the World King realm, it caused my foundation to grow even steadier. By guarding against pride and impatience, my mental realm has also grown stronger. I have comprehended many of the principles that divine venerate Brahma expounded. Even though I am only a world king, an ordinary divine venerate will simply be slaughtered in front of me. Once I become a divine venerate, I will once more challenge Yi Wuxing. I will repay the humiliation that she gave me 100-fold. A sinister smile appeared on Imputa's face. His hatred for Yi Wuxing had already sunk into his bones. Imputa continued, "I showed you this wound to tell you to put away your arrogance and inflated heart. As an assassin, those two things are the greatest taboos. They can take your life at any time. When I said that there were many people in the same realm that could fight you, I simply wanted you to know that you aren't unrivaled. One of those rivals is Dong Mingyu, Yi Wuxing's disciple. According to my current information, Dong Mingyu has awakened the night dark manifestation, meaning that she is exceptionally talented, to the point that she is receiving Yi Wuxing's true inheritance. Yi Wuxing is extremely prideful. Although she has accepted a few ordinary disciples, no one has ever been looked upon so favorably. But Dong Mingyu has been following Yi Wuxing all this time and has passed through countless trials. She also assassinated a half-step divine venerate a full month earlier than you." "What?" Ji Wuming was shocked. It had to be known that to assassinate that half-step divine venerate, he had pushed himself to his limit, and he still almost failed to kill his target. But then, Dong Mingyu had assassinated a half-step divine venerate a month earlier than him? He knew that Dong Mingyu was even younger than him. Regretfully, even Imputa could not obtain the full information on Dong Mingyu. If he were to learn that Dong Mingyu was also an ascender from the lower plane, he would be even more shocked. Wu Ming, remember, an assassin can never be arrogant. Otherwise, they will not be far from death. An assassin is a viper hiding in the dark. Who cares how powerful the target is? The only question is whether or not you can bite their vitals in one blow. If you can, then all their power is meaningless. They are ultimately only prey that falls to your hands. A calm heart, speedy reactions, accurate calculations, and a cool head, these are the most important things to an assassin. They might even be more important than your assassination arts, said Imputa. Disciple understands. Master, don't worry, disciple won't let you down. Ji Wuming bowed. The current him had once more returned to his calm and reserved self. Seeing him lacking the slightest impatience or arrogance, Imputa smiled and nodded. He was very satisfied with this disciple of his. Has your little brother's death caused any reaction from your family? Asked Imputa. Master is wise. You had me let him think that he was unrivaled. Even when he strutted around me, I didn't let him affect me, making him look down on me. After learning a few superficial techniques, he called himself the Bloodkill Hall's #1 expert. Also, after buying a few disciples and having them support him, he swaggered around the world. I even mentioned it to my father several times, but they ignored my warnings. Now that he's dead, they can't blame me. I can simply say that Ji Wing sent me the seed of his supreme bone before his death to avenge him. As for Master's actions, they are untraceable. Furthermore, even if they suspect anything, it's meaningless. I now have 2 supreme bones, so who can do anything to me? With your support, none of them dare to do anything to me. Based on the information my trusted aide in the family transmitted to me, the Ji family is currently sending experts to the Heavenly Talisman Starfield to chase after Long Chen's group, said Ji Wuming with a smile. Imputa nodded. Everything is going as predicted. After your brother's death, your father will definitely be suspicious, but he can't do anything. The Ji family will be yours, and my Bloodkill Hall will also be yours. As long as he isn't a fool, he can only accept it. As for revenge, don't force it. Just put on an act. Long Chen has a close relationship with the Wine God Palace, and they are not a good existence to provoke. Rather than alerting him of your existence, it would be better to patiently wait for your chance. Alright, then I'm going to talk to my father, said Ji Wuming. Seeing that Imputa had no further instructions, he bowed to him, and his figure slowly faded away. Once Ji Wuming left, Imputa touched the wound on his chest. An expression of rancor then appeared on his face. Yi Wuxing, just wait. Once my disciple kills your disciple, I will personally cut off your head. Yi Wuxing equals night no sound. Chapter 3660. I swept through the 4 seas and crossed 1,000 mountains, causing huge billows in heaven and earth. Who can resist my supreme divine might? If you need a peerless hero, you can find Guoran. Xiachen, how does that sound? Does it match my current status and style? A flying boat calmly flew through the air. On it, Guoran proudly chanted his new composition. You should give up this chant of yours. The beginning still hasn't changed since the martial heaven continent era. You know that there's no such thing as the 4 seas and 1,000 mountains in the immortal world, right? If you don't have the talent, don't pretend like you do. Why are you always trying to learn from that fellow Emonian? Xiachen was a bit speechless. This composition of Guoran's was made with his utmost effort. After so many years, the last half had gone through countless changes, making it seem like he was some poet. But it only embarrassed Long Chen and the others to hear it over and over again. No, without enough power, there won't be a good showing off. Thus, without the opening line, it would feel like I didn't exist by boss's side. I can't accept people only remembering boss's name and not even knowing who I am. That would be far too hurtful. If the verse is trash, it doesn't matter. Hee, it's fine as long as it draws attention, said Guoran without minding it. If you only want to find a sense of existence, then this verse is fine. After all, you might be the only one of the few people in the world capable of making up such a bad verse. Most importantly, when it comes to someone who dares to so shamelessly shout it, you are probably all alone. In this regard, I believe you'll get many people to remember you. After all, only an extraordinary person can reach such a realm of shamelessness, said Xiachen. He, when it comes to shamelessness, I still admire Mo Nian. He's truly shameless. I have to learn more from him in this regard, said Guoran with a shameless laugh. Xiachen was truly speechless now. No wonder this fellow was so shameless. He was competing with Mo Nian. No one else could compare to the two of them. Slow down a bit. We have to turn a bit up ahead to get rent from this city, said Guoran. Boom. The flying boat stopped in the air, and Xiachen and Guoran flew into the city. After that, Xiachen threw out a talisman that instantly pierced the Soaring Dragon Company's grand formation. Guoran destroyed the Soaring Dragon Company's building with a single punch and directly plundered the treasury. They then turned and left. Everything occurred in just a few blinks of an eye. Nice job. Guoran immediately flew back to the flying boat with Xiachen. After that, the flying boat made an arrogant arc in the sky before leaving under a torrent of curses from the Soaring Dragon Company's experts. Their movements were so proficient to the point of making people speechless. Most experts in the city didn't even know what was happening even after the flying boat left. At this moment, the flustered and exasperated Soaring Dragon Company's experts and a group of people were staring at them blankly. As usual, we'll take what we each need and leave the useless stuff to boss. Xiachen and Guoran got to work in the flying boat. They had plundered over 70 of the Soaring Dragon Company's treasuries. Since Xiachen hadn't brought anything from the Spirit Rune Pavilion, he needed to start over. Hence, the Soaring Dragon Company became his main sponsor. Both of their pockets were already overflowing after plundering 70 of their treasuries. Despite that, Xiachen was still missing quite a few precious materials. Anyway, Long Chen had said to plunder the Soaring Dragon Company as much as they wanted, and the missing materials would be made up for by the Huayun Trading Company. Xiachen and Guoran were super efficient. Those grand formations of the Soaring Dragon Company might as well not be there in front of Xiachen. He broke them effortlessly. Furthermore, with his formation discs, Xiachen could accurately find the locations of their treasuries. Then Guoran would use his supreme bone to break all other obstacles in their way and snatch it. After that, the two would immediately leave. Their cooperation was flawless. On their best day, they managed to plunder 20 of their treasuries. Because of this activity, Xiachen walked out of Gong Sun Zi's shadow quickly. Together with Guoran, they were like money grubbers, busying themselves with plundering and splitting their ill-gotten loot all day. There was so much loot to go through that they were too busy for anything else. As for Long Chen, he spent all day refining and consuming pills. He could already feel that the Nethergate star was on the verge of turning violet. Once it did, it would be time to condense the 7th star, the Violet Tower star. Half a month later, the flying boat stopped in a deep mountain range, and Long Chen suddenly let out a howl. As violet chi burst out of his entire body, the wild power blasted apart the surrounding mountains. Chi waves scoured the land. A quick look at calm will leave you more fulfilled. Long Chen's 6th star finally turned fully violet. After that, a violet whirlpool appeared beneath Long Chen's dantian. When it manifested, violet chi from all 6 stars surged toward the current in a never-ending cycle. That whirlpool looked like a gaping maw that would never be satisfied. It devoured the violet chi from all 6 stars. Not only that, but the violet clouds surrounding the 108,000 stars were also devoured. Long Chen jumped in shock. He had not expected the formation of the 7th star to require such a huge amount of energy. The violet chi of the 6 stars and the violet clouds of the 108,000 stars were all absorbed, and it still wasn't done. There were signs of the Feng Fu, Aliyaf, Life Fate, Enlightenment Palace, Divine Gate, and Nethergate stars contracting, almost withering. The 108,000 stars also started showing signs of growing listless. Long Chen was horrified by that. How could the 7th star be so greedy that it was trying to devour the energy of all the stars? Just as Long Chen was worried that the 7th star would destroy all of his stars, it finally stopped devouring their energy. After that, The violet whirlpool actually began to spin in the opposite direction. The Feng Fu, Alioth, Life Fate, Enlightenment Palace, Divine Gate, and Nethergate stars received their energy back from the whirlpool. At the same time, the 108,000 stars thrummed with life once more, and the violet clouds appeared above them. Everything returned to normal. However, the starry sea seemed to have come alive now and was moving according to a certain rhythm. As for the whirlpool beneath Long Chen's dantian, it slowly dissipated. Now, there was a violet gas cloud the size of a grain of rice at its core. Despite being small, it seemed to contain immense power. This small gas cloud contained a huge amount of violet qi, and Long Chen felt it thrumming through his body as well. Even without him intentionally circulating it, the violet qi filled his body, flowing through every vein and nourishing every inch of his body. Previously, if he wanted to use his violet qi, he had to use his starry sea. But now, wherever he willed it, the violet qi would appear. The amount of violet qi in his body had shrunk, but there was a huge difference in quality. If his previous violet qi was like a thick strand of hemp that could carry 1,000 tons, then his current violet qi was like a strand of silk that could carry tens of thousands of tons. Violet Tower Star, you finally appeared. Hee, now I have confidence in going to the 9 Underworld Island. Long Chen clenched his fist. Sensing the powerful violet qi in his body, he smiled. Move out. Target, 9 Underworld Island. Chapter 3661. The 9 Underworld Island was located in the southwestern area of the Violet Flame Heaven. It bordered the Devil Sea. Furthermore, there was a Devil Eye located within this Devil Sea that caused countless cultivators to quiver with fear. Legend had it that there was a terrifying devil beneath the Devil Eye, one that made even divine venerates detour around it. Long Chen had once been offered as a sacrifice by the Soaring Dragon Company to a Devil Eye. He had almost died. Unexpectedly, the thing to save him was the mark of the Ghost Sovereign on him. Thus, even Long Chen felt apprehensive about the Devil Eye. The 9 Underworld Island wasn't far from it, and yet they were still safe and sound. Due to being so close to the Devil Eye and shrouded by mist, the 9 Underworld Island was a mysterious place. No one dared to approach it. It was the 9 Underworld Hall's second-largest stronghold, and countless elite assassins were raised there. Those people were like cheetahs of the night. With them standing guard over every movement within that area, anyone who dared to get close never left. After so long, the sea of mist around the 9 Underworld Island became a forbidden area that no one dared to set foot in. That only caused the 9 Underworld Island to become even more mysterious. Also, the 9 Underworld Island was actually composed of over 3,600 islands. They all possessed different magnetic fields that repulsed and attracted each other, resulting in space being very chaotic there. It was difficult for outsiders to get accustomed to that space. Adding on the mist and the special formations set up by the 9 Underworld Hall, this area was very bewildering. Outsiders would basically be crippled if they entered, their senses thrown into disarray. They would then simply be slaughtered. This information was given by the Huayun Trading Company. But even the Huayun Trading Company only had this much information and had no details on the inside. That was enough to show just how mysterious the 9 Underworld Island was. Boss, why is the path so weird? Making all these turns is using up quite a bit of time. Xia Chen couldn't help speaking up as he controlled the flying boat through the path that Long Chen had drawn on the map. It's just to bewilder our opponents. They already know where we are. Even if they can't find our tracks, they can tell the direction we're going based on our plundering activities. Our target is the 9 Underworld Island, but we can't go there directly. We'll loop around. In the other direction, there's the ruins of one of the branches of the High Firmament Academy. I'm throwing them off, making them think that we're going to the ruins to activate the foundation stone. They'll then set up a trap for us there. That should increase our odds of success in sneaking into the 9 Underworld Island, said Long Chen. You really think our odds aren't good, boss? Xia Chen now possesses enough wealth to rival a nation, and I have a supreme bone, while you, boss, are an undefeatable battle god. With us 3 brothers joining forces and considering that we're launching a quick sneak attack, Is there really any chance of failure? Asked Guoran. After the past few days of looting, Xia Chen had gathered many materials. Furthermore, they had bought any materials that he was missing while passing by the Huayun Trading Company. He currently possessed even more materials than the Spirit Rune Pavilion had possessed. After all, the Heavenly Talisman Starfield's cultivators bought their materials from various major trading companies. Hence, looting the Soaring Dragon Company turned Xia Chen into a moneybags overnight. After becoming a moneybags, Xia Chen added a few more runes to Guoran's body. They would let him merge with the Supreme Bone's power faster. The two of them also researched how they should proceed with Guoran's Devil Dragon battle armor. By inscribing new runes onto it, its defensive and offensive powers would increase greatly. Xia Chen was also testing how he could merge the power of the battle armor with the Supreme Bone. Once he succeeded, Guoran would truly be unrivaled. That was why the current Guoran felt immense confidence. Although he wouldn't dare to say that he could beat Long Chen right now, he did feel that at the very least, the distance between them was getting shorter. If all three of them were to join forces, well, to use his words, they could swagger wherever they wanted in this world. Long Chen couldn't be bothered to dampen his inflated ego. Whatever he said wouldn't enter Guoran's head anyway. Only when he encountered a truly terrifying existence would he understand just how shallow he was. Long Chen sternly said, "Our mission this time is of utmost importance. We must succeed. If we fail, we'll never get a second chance, so we cannot fail. Be wary of getting careless. Xia Chen, you have to prepare some extra life-saving measures. I have a premonition that this time, our success will depend on you." "Boss, don't worry. Leave it to me," promised Xia Chen. Long Chen nodded. At least, Xia Chen was more reliable. When it came to an unreliable fellow like Guoran, Long Chen couldn't even be bothered to explain things to him more than once. However, Long Chen could understand where he was coming from. Guoran had a supreme bone, and Xia Che had powered up his battle armor. Now, he was already capable of using Long Chen's third form of Split the Heavens with those new runes. Other than the first form of Split the Heavens being researched by him, the second and third forms were gained without the slightest effort. The runes that Long Chen had worked so hard to come up with were simply taken by him. Long Chen even started to have a feeling like he existed just to work for this little fellow. Although Guoran's Split the Heavens didn't have the will of Split the Heavens and it was lacking in mental power as well, he did have a supreme bone. With its power merged into Split the Heavens, it was truly shocking. We are calm. Find us on Google. Xia Chen had also set up some more runes on Guoran's saber to make sure that it could endure the force of his supreme bone. When it came to pure destructive power, Guoran was not inferior to Long Chen. Thus, it was normal for Guoran's confidence to be so overinflated. If that didn't happen, he wouldn't be Guoran. As for Xia Chen, he was different from Guoran. He was someone who had worked hard as a solo cultivator without any backing. Even from a young age, he was already steady and reliable. After what happened in the Spirit Rune Pavilion, his heart only grew steadier. Although Xia Chen wasn't showing off all of his trump cards like Guoran, just from his calm expression, Long Chen knew that his power was definitely not inferior to Guoran's. It was simply that he didn't like showing off. Guoran had tried to make Xia Chen talk about his trump cards several times, but Xia Chen tactfully refused. Guoran called him petty, but Xia Chen only smiled and didn't explain himself. Long Chen couldn't help sighing about it. As expected, mountains and rivers changed, but people didn't. Even after suffering for over a year in the Heavenly Dragon Divine Armor College, Guoran's sloppy nature hadn't changed. The flying boat continued to weave across the land. Xia Chen and Guoran continued plundering their targets, and Long Chen focused on refining and consuming pills. As he continued to consume pills, a vast amount of medicinal energy was finally absorbed by the Violet Tower star. It was already the size of a bean. Suddenly, the Violet Tower star quivered and its light illuminated the entire star sea. Long Chen smiled with gratification. The first star transformation is done. Hee, I can finally summon the 7-color divine ring. Chapter 3662. In a barren desert, a red, orange, yellow, green, azure, blue, and violet divine ring quivered, forming a circular rainbow behind Long Chen. This is too awe-inspiring, isn't it? Seeing Long Chen standing there, appearing incredibly majestic and domineering with his divine ring behind him, Guoran was so envious that he almost wept. This manifestation, who cared about them? Were any of them as beautiful as this 7-color divine ring? Even an ugly monster would look handsome and suave with this divine ring behind them. Guoran's eyes shone enviously. "Xia Chen, can you make me such a manifestation as well? That would be amazing. Good brother, make me one, and once I attract the ladies, let's split them. How does that sound?" Xia Chen rolled his eyes. Had Guoran gotten into the habit of looting? Could just anything be split in two? Every color of Boss's divine ring corresponds to a heavenly Tao energy. You can't control that anyway. Even if you had such a divine ring, it would have no use other than to show off. Why don't I just set you up with a giant tail? Then when you see a pretty girl, you can just raise your butt like a peacock and show your feathers. You can write, "Little sister, do you want to mate?" Fuck, we're brothers, are we not? It was just a joke. There's no need to wound me like this, complained Guoran. The main thing is that you were thinking that exact thing. Xia Chen was speechless. But I always protected my purity in the Heavenly Dragon Divine Armor College, raged Guoran. There's no need for you to protect it. You'll stay pure anyway. Xia Chen curled his lips. He understood Guoran far too well. For someone like Guoran to have stayed in the Heavenly Dragon Divine Armor College without finding a woman was not due to not having time, it was due to having no chance at all. "Do you believe me when I say that I'll use Gong Sun Zi to attack you?" said Guoran wickedly. "Teach what I picked up, I put down. I'm not ashamed of anything. I've loved, I've hated. It's all transient. Life is beautiful but not perfect. I trust that I'll definitely find a warm, caring, and considerate woman to share life together. But no matter what, at the very least, I can say that I have experience in this regard, unlike a certain someone, hee. Xia Chen's smile was even more wicked than Guoran's. He revealed his teeth. Seeing that Xia Chen had walked out of the shadow of his first love, Guoran laughed. They were like real brothers, so he sincerely wished Xia Chen happiness. "Then let's not talk about love. That divine ring, make me one too." Scram. I reject this work. Seeing that they somehow managed to return to this topic, Xia Chen directly rejected him. With Xia Chen's current accomplishment, adding a divine ring to Guoran's divine armor was no problem. Drawing in all kinds of energy was also no problem, but it would require a huge amount of time and energy. The main point though was that if Guoran wanted to control all those kinds of energy, he would have to put in a great deal of work. To the lazy Guoran, that was definitely impossible. That was why Xia Chen rejected his plea. Just as Xia Chen and Guoran were talking nonsense, Long Chen was standing in the air, sensing the power that the 7-colored divine ring gave him. The violet color of the divine ring was clearly dimmer than the others. Its circulation was also not as smooth. It was going at a different tempo compared to the rest of the divine ring. That was because the violet tower star had just undergone the first star transformation, so summoning the 7-colored divine ring was pushing it. At this moment, a strange sound came from Long Chen's divine ring. A current of lightning streaked through it, and then other energies appeared within the divine ring. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, and lightning. 7 kinds of energy. So the violet ring represents lightning. No wonder Hualinger's recovery was faster despite both of them exhausting all of their power before this. Long Chen sensed the world's thunder force being summoned by a mysterious power when he circulated his divine ring. At the same time, Lei Linger was also awoken. Thunder force flowed through the divine ring and into Lei Linger's body. She then directly absorbed it. Long Chen smiled. Hualinger had advanced a great deal, to the point of throwing Lei Linger behind. But now, the violet divine ring was like a lightning gate for Lei Linger. Even without meticulously circulating the divine ring, Lei Linger could absorb the outside world's thunder force through Long Chen to slowly increase her own power and recovery rate. From today onward, Lei Linger would have the same edge as Hualinger. Lei Linger was rather emotional. After the battle with All Devil Tianai, Hualinger had only taken 10 days to fully recover, while she had only recovered to 90% even now. Dorush. The Violet Tower star has just condensed. As it grows stronger, you will also grow stronger, comforted Long Chen. Contrary to Hualinger, Lei Linger's growth was restricted. She only managed to eat her fill during Long Chen's tribulations and then had to starve the rest of the time. After all, when it came to Hualinger, Long Chen could buy and give her all kinds of flame element ores and flame seeds. She had also eaten her fill in the Heavenly Dragon domain last time. Lei Linger was always starving even as she supported Long Chen. Hence, she would always get incredibly excited for just a trace of Thunder Force. Thinking of this, Long Chen felt guilty. He felt like he had let her down. But then, there was no way around it. Lightning attribute treasures were far too rare. Furthermore, Thunder Force was different from flame energy. There were many kinds of ores that could contain flame energy for long-term storage, but no such ores for Thunder Force. Any ores that did contain Thunder Force would have that Thunder Force quickly dissipate as soon as they were mined and brought away from their source. Hence, whether it was lightning attribute ores or weapons, they were very rare. Likewise, lightning cultivators were as rare as a phoenix feather or Qilin horn. Fortunately, with this 7-color divine ring, Long Chen would at least be able to provide some nourishment to Lei Linger. This also drew Long Chen's attention to this point. He would have to think of a way to increase Lei Linger's power in the future. All of a sudden, Long Chen's divine ring spun frantically, and a terrifying power burst out of it. Boom! Just as that power was erupting, the violet divine ring exploded, returning the 7-color divine ring to a 6-color divine ring. It's still no good. The violet divine ring's power has surpassed my expectations. The problem is in the foundation balancing the divine ring. If its power is lacking, it's impossible to concentrate 7 kinds of energy. A solemn expression appeared on Long Chen's face. The violet divine ring vanished, leaving behind the original 6-color divine ring. With that, the metal, wood, water, fire, earth, and wind energies also vanished. It was like they had never appeared. It seems that I need to reach at least the 3rd star transformation before I can truly control the divine ring's energy. But there's not quite enough time. Search. Calm for the original. Long Chen felt a bit rushed because they would reach the 9 underworld islands soon. He was already exposed, and it was unknown how many people were hunting him. If he were to stop, he would lose his initiative. Fuck, I don't care. Let's take the risk. Long Chen clenched his teeth. He could not wait that long. Together with Xia Chen and Guoran, he flew to the 9 underworld island. 2 days later, the mountains and plains vanished. The world became covered in mist, and an endless sea appeared in front of them. They were finally seeing the Sea of Mist. Chapter 3663. In the misty area, the water was as flat as a mirror, and the mist restricted their vision as well as dampened any sounds. It was so quiet that it was chilling. Long Chen's group of 3 slowly entered the mist. When they did, Long Chen's spiritual perception was pushed as far as he could. He didn't dare to be careless. Wait, we'll enter the sensing range of their formation if we go any further. Xia Chen suddenly stopped. He was holding a formation disc. Boss, Guoran, put these concealment talismans on your bodies. That way, the formation will not be able to sense us. Xia Chen took out 3 talismans. He passed 2 of them to Long Chen and Guoran, while putting one on his own body. I can still see you. Is it not working? Guoran saw that there was no change even once Xia Chen put on the talisman. This body-concealing talisman specifically blocks formations from sensing you. If you're talking about those concealing talismans that make you invisible to the naked eye, then you'll need to take off your clothes, said Xia Chen irritably. Really, there's such a talisman? Then give me a few, said Guoran excitedly. What do you want those for? Asked Xia Chen questioningly. Cough, nothing. I'm just curious. Don't look at me like that. Fine, I don't want any then. Guoran saw Xia Chen looking at him disdainfully and felt a bit guilty. The 3 of them stuck on the talismans and continued forward. Xiaqin kept his formation disc out, constantly keeping an eye on it. It not only gave him information on the enemy formations, but it also made sure that they didn't get lost. It had to be known that this sea of mist space was chaotic, making it very easy to lose their direction. Ordinary experts would have great difficulty ever leaving once they entered the mist. However, even after traveling for a couple of hours, everything was still calm. There was nothing other than the eerily quiet sea. The three of them weren't moving quickly though. They continued onward slowly. The deeper they went, the denser the mist grew. Their vision got increasingly limited. Now, they could only see a few dozen meters ahead of them. To a cultivator, that was almost like being blind. It made them feel stifled and uneasy. Long Chen's divine sense was originally spread as far as he could, but he then found that this mist was rapidly using up his energy, so he stopped spreading his divine sense. He just left it all to Xiaqin. There's someone up ahead. Almost half a day later, Xiaqin suddenly whispered. Long Chen then spread his divine sense and instantly sensed some spiritual fluctuations. To the right, around 600 miles ahead, there's someone kneeling on the edge of an island. Their cultivation base is between the 7th and 8th heaven stage of the Divine Lord realm, said Xiaqin. Let's take a look. The three of them stealthily crept forward. As expected, they saw an island, and a figure appeared on Xiaqin's formation disc. It was a masked and cloaked figure silently blending into a large tree. He was completely motionless, and his aura was merged with the environment. Without the formation disc, they might not have noticed his existence even if they walked right past him. Is it a sentry? Guoran was startled. Theoretically, they were still quite far from the actual important area. Long Chen shook his head. It doesn't seem to be the case. If it was a sentry, his body wouldn't be so stiff, and his blood qi circulation wouldn't be so quick. He seems very nervous. Unless, of course, he has already noticed us. Impossible. I've shielded us from the spying of all formations and concealed our auras. At this distance, it is impossible that he noticed us first, guaranteed Xiaqin. Let's stop here and just watch for a while, said Long Chen. The three of them hid in the dark, silently observing that person. After several breaths, that person suddenly moved, shooting toward a rock like a bolt of lightning. After that, blood splashed and a human head flew through the air. Another person in identical robes had his head cut off. Long Chen and the others were startled. Were there others like them that had snuck into the sea of mist? After slaying that person, the first person took something and then shot away, vanishing within the mist. Once everything was calm, Long Chen and the others stealthily crept over to the side of that dead person. They found that it was another disciple of the 9 Underworld Hall that was slain by that other fellow. Calm for the original. Long Chen pressed a finger on that person's head. His soul had just dissipated and Long Chen managed to grasp a few images. Tablet trial, by fire. Long Chen came to a sudden understanding. They had arrived just in time for the 9 Underworld Hall's trial by fire. The location of the trial was precisely this sea of mist. There were currently millions of assassins undergoing trial within this sea region. Every single one of them held a tablet. In order to pass this trial, they had to have 9 tablets from others. In other words, of 10 people, 9 must be killed for one to advance. 9 tablets was the minimum standard. 90 tablets was outstanding, and if someone could obtain 900 tablets, they could directly enter the final trial region, skipping all the other trials. Long Chen couldn't obtain much more information as that person's soul had dissipated. But just this much was very helpful. We came at a good time. Take this person's clothes and mask. We'll also join this trial. We'll see if fake assassins like us can also pass the trial. Long Chen smiled mischievously. Guoran and Xiaqin instantly got excited. Guoran put on the clothes, while Xiaqin began inscribing talismans based on that person's blood qi. With those talismans, their blood qi fluctuations would be almost identical. Even the 9 Underworld Hall's experts wouldn't be able to sense any difference. The three of them quickly found more corpses and took their clothes and masks for themselves. Then adding on Xiaqin's talismans onto their masks, their auras were perfectly covered. Even they couldn't recognize each other any longer. With these disguises, the three of them brazenly swaggered deeper into the mist. In order to not draw attention, they split up but maintained a certain distance so that they could keep track of each other. The three of them moved in one direction. Boom! A sneak attacker attacked Guoran, only to be blown apart by a single punch. However, the huge explosion made Xia Chen and Long Chen jump. "You have to hit lighter. You're an assassin now. Don't make such a ruckus." Xia Chen sent an exasperated message to Guoran. This fellow still thought that they were outside and he could simply punch the 9 Underworld Hall's assassins to death. His power pierced through the very earth, and it was far too conspicuous. Was that the work of an assassin? Guoran hastily apologized. He had forgotten that he was now an assassin. The last attack had purely been instinct. Long Chen and Xia Chen glared at this fool, wanting to beat him. Fortunately, they were still in the outer regions. If they were at the core, they would definitely be exposed. This fellow just didn't think. Most hateful of all, he had actually used his Supreme Bone's power, destroying that person's body, along with his tablet. They didn't get anything from it. In order to avoid a ruckus, the three of them stayed where they were for a long while. Seeing that no other experts had been disturbed and were rushing over, they continued entering deeper. "Xia Chen, be careful." Guoran suddenly sent Xia Chen a message. At some unknown point, a strange figure had appeared behind Xia Chen. Chapter 3664. A strange figure suddenly appeared behind Xia Chen. After that, a dagger stabbed toward the back of his head as quickly as a bolt of lightning, without any sound. However, the dagger went straight through Xia Chen's body. The latter was nothing more than an illusion. A foot-long talisman 2 inches wide then spun through that person's neck. Without even being able to grunt, that person's head was cut off by the talisman. Xia Chen waved his hand, and the talisman flew into his hand like a cyclone. It was clearly a piece of paper but was as sharp as a divine weapon. It came and went without a shadow, slashing through defenses. The most shocking thing to Long Chen and Guoran was that the moment Xia Chen was attacked, even Long Chen didn't manage to see how he instantly moved himself. His movement art was bizarre. There was no premonition at all. Damn, this movement art, this attacking style, it's all badass. Guoran finally had a chance to see Xia Chen fight. His movements were clean and sharp. Seeing it, Guoran was envious. This fellow was an expert. He already gathered 6 tablets. "Let's split them, 2 each," said Xia Chen. "I don't need them. I'll gather them myself," said Guoran proudly. "Take them for now in order to not be exposed. Only a dead person wouldn't have any tablets on them. It would be troublesome to be noticed," said Long Chen. Since Long Chen said that, Guoran took 2 tablets. They continued onward, growing increasingly familiar with the terrain here. The 3 of them were linked by formation discs. As they gradually grew more confident, they spread out a bit more and started the trial. It had to be known that assassins didn't fight in groups. Even if they had the same target, they would fight for themselves. The number 1 rule for an assassin was that they could only trust themselves. The allies beside them might be even more dangerous than their enemies. Long Chen, Guoran, and Xia Chen weren't skilled in sneaking like assassins. They just randomly ran around the forest, intentionally drawing other assassins to them so that they could kill the assassins. It was unknown if it was Guoran's acting that was simply too good, but other than the first person to try to assassinate him, no one else targeted him even after an hour. Most likely, it was because his display was just too exaggerated. The assassins were no fools. The more he acted like he was trying to draw other people over, the more they felt that something was wrong. On the other hand, Long Chen and Xia Chen had killed over 10 people. After killing those people, Long Chen would directly soul-search their soul fragments. He finally understood the rules of the trial. This was the greatest trial for the 9 Underworld Hall and was only held once every 10 years. It was the strongest and cruelest trial. This trial region had a special magnetic field. If anyone dared to leave the region, without that magnetic field, the poison pill that they had consumed in advance would erupt, and they would die a miserable death. Thus, no one dared to flee. What they had to do was obtain 9 other tablets to protect their lives. When it came to ordinary assassins, staying alive was their main priority. But to the experts, hunting down more people was their goal. Then they could directly advance to the final trial. Other than this trial, there were 3 more coming up. Every trial was filled with dangers, all with 1 in 10 chances of surviving. If they could obtain 100 tablets this time, they could directly skip the next few trials. That would save them quite a bit of effort and allow them to avoid some dangers. However, all the true experts were at the core of the trial region. That was because they were experts with confidence in their power. They would hunt down their enemies as quickly as possible, as there were only a total of 300 spots available for those who could skip to the final trial. If they were too late, they would not get that privilege. As for the region that Long Chen was in, it was the outer region. Those that had come here were comparatively weak. Their goal was only to gather 9 tablets and live. Once they gathered 9 tablets, they could leave the trial and obtain the reward for passing. After that, they had 2 options. One was to continue participating in the trials and gaining further rewards, or they could simply give up. They would then be sent to branch halls to carry out their own missions, starting their assassination careers. To these weaker people, gathering 9 tablets was their ultimate goal. If they were lucky, they might only need to kill a single person. If that person had 8 tablets, they would directly pass. Of course, the opposite was also true. You might kill several people and gather 8 tablets, only to be killed by your final target. You could only accept your bad luck in that case. The 9 Underworld Halls trial was bloody and cruel. However, those that were here didn't have much fear. They had long since grown numb to life. They weren't just indifferent to other people's lives but also their own. It was this indifference to life that let them abandon any fear, maintaining a cool heart at all times. That would allow them to truly unleash the power of an assassin. To put it frankly, they were nothing more than killing machines with no emotions. Contrary to the Bloodkill Hall's assassins, the 9 Underworld Hall's assassins focused purely on assassination arts and the techniques involved. The Bloodkill Hall's assassins also focused on assassination arts, but they were more specialized in scheming, traps, hidden weapons, poison, honey traps, tricking enemies, and other things. One pushed assassination arts to the limit, while the other came up with all kinds of various stratagems. They were both assassins, but both looked upon the other with hostility. The 9 Underworld Hall looked down on the Bloodkill Hall's scheming, thinking that assassins should specialize only in assassination techniques. On the other hand, the Bloodkill Hall also looked down on the 9 Underworld Hall for being unwilling to use any means necessary to assassinate their targets. They would rather use their smarts to save the effort. Since that was the case, the Bloodkill Hall's assassins looked at the 9 Underworld Hall's assassins as if the latter were fools. In their minds, assassins pursued only results, so they had to be skilled at scheming and using any means necessary. But because of the same reason, the 9 Underworld Hall's assassins viewed the Bloodkill Hall's assassins as the scum of the assassination world. Even an assassin had to have their own bottom lines. Dirty schemes and third-rate tricks were blasphemy to the profession of assassins. An assassin should focus on assassination arts, both in the open and in the dark. As long as they killed their target, they would be an assassin. To sum it up, both halls, from the masters to the disciples, were like water and fire. If it weren't for Lord Brahma restricting them, both of those halls would have long since slaughtered each other. However, when it came to pure combat power, the 9 Underworld Halls' fighting power was a level stronger than the Bloodkill Halls. After all, their skills were the result of direct kills. On the other hand, the Bloodkill Hall's assassins would be forced to flee as soon as they were exposed. If they couldn't run, they could only accept their defeat. When it came to a head-on clash, they weren't worth shit. However, these particular assassins here were clearly disciples. Their assassination arts might be refined, but they were lacking experience. Their movements were clearly a bit tender. Long Chen's group of 3 continued toward the core. Long Chen had already gathered over 300 tablets, and Xia Chen was about the same. Only Guoran was stuck crying. He had killed 6 people and only gathered 7 tablets from them. It had to be known that the people that Long Chen killed always had a few tablets at the very least. Some even had dozens. Just as the 3 of them entered the core region, A figure suddenly descended from the heavens and stabbed at Guoran's head. It was a surprisingly head-on sneak attack. Guoran directly grabbed that person's sharp sword, shocking him. This was an extremely confident expert, otherwise, he wouldn't be attacking head-on like this. However, he hadn't expected his target to be able to grab his sword bare-handed. When you're just trying to make great content at calm. Just as he was shocked, an arrow cylinder appeared on Guoran's left hand, and an arrow flew out like a bolt of black lightning, piercing that person's head. Heavens, I've struck gold. Guoran was delighted to find 897 tablets on that person. When he pulled them into his bag that was specifically used to hold tablets, his bag suddenly lit up and Guoran's figure vanished. Not good. This little fellow's been transported away. Long Chen and Xia Chen's expressions instantly changed. It had happened too suddenly. They didn't know whether or not Guoran was about to be exposed. Chapter 3665. Several spirit runes flashed endlessly. After that, a black figure spun through the air, dodging 6 times before one of the spirit runes pierced his head, killing him. 517. Boss, take them quick. We don't want Guoran to be exposed. Xia Chen handed the tablets to Long Chen. That way, Long Chen would have precisely 900 tablets. Long Chen nodded. Although the assassins here were stronger, Xia Chen should be able to deal with them on his own. The real worry was Guoran. At this moment, Long Chen's bag lit up and a powerful spatial energy sucked his body away. He then appeared in front of a mountain gate. When he arrived, he saw that there were over 100 experts. Before he even had time to look for Guoran, he already heard Guoran's voice. Don't act like big shit in front of me. Do you believe me when I say that I'll kill you with a single slap? It's not like I ran into you on purpose, so if you can't get over it, let's just have a quick fight to the death. This novel is available on Com. When Guoran was transported here, he was startled and instinctively struggled. Long Chen hadn't even had time to tell him that he would automatically be transported away once he had enough tablets. After all, Guoran only had so few tablets. No one had expected his luck to be so good as to get enough in one go. Hence, Guoran thought that he had been discovered and tried to fight off the transportation, resulting in a slight deviation of the transportation and him crashing into someone else. Every person here had their own space, around 300 meters from each other. After all, considering that they were assassins, they had to maintain some safe distance from each other. If they were too close, they wouldn't feel any sense of safety. However, Guoran ended up crashing into an assassin, causing that assassin to jump and automatically slash his sword at him. Fortunately, Guoran recalled Long Chen's words and didn't use his supreme bone to block. He instead used the sword taken from another disciple of the 9 Underworld Hall to parry the attack. Guoran wasn't skilled with the sword and was sent flying. But even then, that person didn't let him off and directly unleashed a killing blow at him. In his panic, Guoran used the arrow mechanism in his sleeve, forcing that person back. That gave Guoran a chance to breathe, and he couldn't help cursing that fellow. However, that person didn't reply to Guoran's cursing. The others were all seated in their own spots and looking at them coldly. They were also silent. The silence hanging in the air was rather frightening. What are you looking at? Do you want to fight? Shouted Guoran in front of those gazes. That person continued eyeing Guoran for a little bit before returning to his own seat. Once he left, Guoran also found his own spot. Only then did he take note that Long Chen had also come. However, he didn't dare to say anything to him. Long Chen was speechless. This little fellow was a master at causing trouble. As an assassin, he had to maintain an absolute cool at all times. With this temper, how could he possibly fool anyone into thinking that he was an assassin? Clearly, that person had taken note that Guoran wasn't targeting him intentionally, and only then did he stop paying any attention to Guoran. An assassin's nerves had to be stretched taut at all times. Hence, when Guoran suddenly appeared, that assassin attacked him instinctively. After this ruckus, the vicinity became calm again. Right now, Long Chen and Guoran were 3 spaces apart. In other words, between the time when Guoran and Long Chen entered, 3 people had also finished the trial and entered. Following that, space began to quiver ever so slightly as one person after another appeared. They were all assassins that had managed to gather a sufficient number of tablets to be brought here. In just a few breaths' time, over 10 more people appeared. Long Chen instantly started to worry. There were only 300 places. As time passed, gathering a large number of tablets in one go would get easier. However, Long Chen didn't know if Xia Chen could make it. Fortunately, Xia Chen quickly came. He was number 247. Seeing him, Long Chen and Guo Ran sighed with relief. Even as more people continued to be brought in, everyone was silent. It seemed that from the start, the only one to ever speak was Guo Ran. When the 300 spots were full, the mountain gate ahead of them rumbled and slowly opened. A masked expert then appeared. This was a world king whose aura was transient. It appeared real and illusory at the same time. Upon seeing this world king, Long Chen's heart shook. This was a formidable expert. Congratulations. You will be directly brought to the final star-peering heavenly mirror trial. However, before the trial, you will undergo a baptism of heavenly lightning. This heavenly lightning is the highest level reward of our 9 underworld hall from our sacred land, the heavenly lightning divine pool. It drives the Bloodkill Hall's people crazy with jealousy. Through the baptism of the heavenly lightning divine pool, your essence, chi, and spirit will undergo a complete transformation. You all know the benefits, so I won't go on and on about them. Once the heavenly lightning divine pool's baptism is over, you will enter the star-peering heavenly mirror trial. Perhaps you've never heard of the star-peering heavenly mirror, so I'll give an explanation today. The star-peering heavenly mirror is our heavenly eye for hunting down 9 star heirs. It was personally made by fallen Daynate. In the past, the trails that we gave you were transmitted to us by the star-peering heavenly mirror. It overlooks the 9 heavens and 10 lands, sensing and calculating the locations of 9 star heirs. It is the reason why you can find your targets. Today, your ultimate trial is within the star-peering heavenly mirror. The star-peering heavenly mirror is a priceless treasure. It can not only find 9 star heirs, but it can also capture some 9 star heirs and turn them into fighting puppets. Maybe you can already guess it. Your next trial will be to have a 1-against-1 fight against 9 star heirs. If you win, your trial will be complete. But if you lose, you will die. This trial is different from before. What you are facing are 9 star heirs in the same realm. Although they aren't the strongest 9 star heirs, they are above average. They perfectly suit your current power. However, you also know that 9 star heirs are called the number 1 warriors of the 9 heavens and 10 lands. They are fearless. Based on past experience, at least half of you will die inside. You might even be fully wiped out. Be prepared, announced that world king. His voice was icy as hell, like he was truly a killing machine with no emotion. These assassins were the same, not giving off the slightest emotional ripple. According to the order of your tablets, enter the heavenly lightning divine pool, said an expert that came to personally distribute new tablets. Long Chen found that his tablet actually had an explanation about the heavenly lightning divine pool. After reading the introduction, Lei Linger was growing excited inside his body. Long Chen smiled slightly. It was finally time for Lei Linger to eat her meat. There was a path beyond the mountain gate. As they followed the path, they began to hear the sound of thunder. They then saw a sea of lightning up ahead. At this moment, a giant heavenly pillar entered Long Chen's gaze. Chapter 3666. They're actually innate lightning runes. Xia Chen was shocked to see that heavenly pillar. Those so-called innate runes were runes born of heaven and earth. There was no way for cultivators to replicate them. The heavenly pillar soared far into the clouds and beyond. No one could see the end of it. They could only see the runes forming draconic patterns across the pillar and an unending stream of lightning slowly flowing down from it, emitting a violent power. At the bottom of the pillar was an enormous lightning sea. The lightning on the edge of the sea was rather calm, but the further it went, the more violent it raged. As for the area beside the heavenly pillar, the lightning was roaring in the form of countless monsters. However, the 9 Underworld Hall's assassins didn't hesitate. As soon as they reached the Lightning Sea, they directly jumped in. They were like killing machines that had no emotions. They simply did whatever they were told to. A quick look at Calm will leave you more fulfilled. When Guo Ran jumped in, the lightning stabbed into his body like needles, and he couldn't help crying out. Long Chen and Xia Chen had the urge to beat him. Others were entering without a sound, so this little shout of his was far too conspicuous. Fortunately, the others completely ignored him. Everyone maintained a certain distance from the others and began swimming slowly toward the center of the Lightning Sea. Although everyone was wearing a mask, Guo Ran could clearly sense Xia Chen and Long Chen's murderous gazes. Hence, he hastily shut his mouth. When Long Chen entered the Lightning Sea, he found that the energy in the outer region wasn't very violent. Its energy entered the flesh and soul, tempering their essence, qi, and spirit. This was the lightning of the 9 heavens, something similar to heavenly tribulation lightning. However, this lightning didn't have that destructive will. It was no wonder that the World King would say that this was a place that drove the Bloodkill Hall wild with envy. It truly was a priceless treasure. Xia Chen's body quivered slightly when he entered the lightning pool. His physical body wasn't strong. In fact, it was weaker than Guo Ran's. But he knew that this was a rare opportunity and also his best chance to increase his essence, qi, and spirit. Hence, he clenched his teeth and swam deeper into the lightning with everyone else. Aren't assassins not supposed to have that powerful physical bodies? Why are they so strong? Xia Chen was shocked to see these assassins continuing onward. He already felt like he was pushing his limit, but they were going even further. The 9 Underworld Hall's assassins are different from the Bloodkill Hall's assassins. They specialize in assassination arts and have high requirements for the strength and flexibility of the body. Thus, their physical bodies are actually stronger than average cultivators. Do your best to endure. Once you reach your limit, I'll have Lei Linger protect you. This lightning doesn't contain a destructive will, so you too can use this chance to temper your bodies and souls. It's a huge opportunity for you both. Xia Chen, didn't you say that your soul energy still has some impurities? You can use this lightning to make your soul energy flawless, transmitted Long Chen. Guo Ran and Xia Chen nodded. Guo Ran's physical body was strong, but his spiritual strength wasn't. Especially in terms of his will, he was even inferior to an ordinary cultivator. As for Xia Chen, his will was stronger than Guo Ran's, but his physical body was far weaker. Thus, the strength of the lightning pool's tempering was about the same for them. The question was, which of them would be unable to endure first? In order to not show any clues, they continued to creep toward the core at the same speed as the others. As they got closer, their bodies were in even greater pain. At the same time, a terrifying rumbling sound started to come from the depths of their soul. Even strange sights began to enter their minds. The two of them knew that what they were seeing was nothing more than illusions. As the lightning tempered their souls, it drew out some dredges of their memories. The nightmares of their youth as well as the terrifying sights that they had seen after growing up appeared. There was sorrow, there was joy, there was terror. All kinds of sights appeared in their minds right now. The two of them were forced to resist the disturbance of these sights while they continued keeping an eye on the surroundings. They also had to take the initiative to draw in the lightning. Due to this, even breathing was difficult for them and their speed dropped. However, as the two of them reached their limit, the others were showing signs of not being able to endure as well. Their speeds began to drop, but they still did their best to get closer to the core. The lightning pool was enormous. Even though all of them were doing their best to swim to the center, they were still in the outer region. In fact, there was still quite some distance from the middle zone, let alone the actual core. Long Chen didn't feel anything at all. This lightning was nothing more than an itch to him. On the other hand, Lei Linger had transformed into millions of lightning dragons that were stealthily swimming to the core region. Long Chen spread his divine sense, keeping an eye on the surroundings. Xia Chen had checked and found that there was no grand formation spying on them. That was why Long Chen dared to let Lei Linger so brazenly absorb the lightning here. Boss, I can't endure any longer. In just 2 hours, Guo Ran admitted his defeat. Even Xia Chen hasn't said that he's done. Can you have some backbone? Furthermore, with so many people here, are you going to be the first to give up? Don't you think that you'll expose yourself? Replied Long Chen. Didn't you say that you had a method? Cried Guoran. That method is for me to protect you once you reach your limit. After that, I'll have Lei Linger help you absorb the lightning to temper your body. You haven't reached your limit yet, so how can I help you? Long Chen was rather speechless. This little fellow truly knew how to be lazy. He was entirely hoping for Long Chen's aid. Long Chen ignored Guoran. For this kind of tempering, a person usually had to endure at least 3 days. Once a person reached their limit, they would faint. Once they lost consciousness, the lightning would continue tempering the body. That unconscious absorption was the most important part. Lei Linger, slow down. We have plenty of time. Don't go too far, or we'll be exposed, transmitted Long Chen. It had only been 6 hours, but Lei Linger already drew the attention of the lightning beasts at the core. That made Long Chen warn her. The main thing was that he still hadn't figured out the true essence of this lightning pool. If Lei Linger started devouring the lightning beasts, resulting in some problem, it would spell trouble for him. He didn't want to disturb the old fellows here. It had to be known that his main target was the star-peering heavenly mirror, also known as the devil-peering mirror. If something happened here, he would be unable to enter the star-peering heavenly mirror trial. Long Chen's luck was good this time. He had actually arrived just in time for this trial and could directly come into contact with the star-peering heavenly mirror. However, if he was noticed now and the other side was on guard, it would be impossibly difficult to break the mirror. The star-peering heavenly mirror was related to the deaths of countless 9-star heirs. So, Long Chen had no choice but to be careful and had Lei Linger slow down. Long Chen had Lei Linger first assimilate the lightning runes in the pool. Once the lightning runes in the sea had her brand on them, it would become a part of her body. After that, they could study the lightning beasts. A day later, everyone was unconscious. Long Chen also pretended to be unconscious and quietly floated on top of the lightning pool. Suddenly, 2 figures appeared in the air above the lightning pool. When Long Chen saw one of those figures, he almost cried out. Chapter 3667. This person was precisely the master of the 9 underworld hall, Liao Bensong. He actually appeared here. Long Chen's heart sank. Didn't Liao Bensong always stay in the headquarters of the 9 underworld hall? How could he appear here? According to the memories he had gained from the 9 underworld Luocha's soul, Liao Bensong had to stay in the 9 underworld palace of the Heaven Gathering Mountain. That was the headquarters of the 9 underworld hall. The faith energy of the 9 underworld hall's countless believers was concentrated there. It was his cultivation land for gathering faith energy, so he wouldn't leave it for nothing. For this fellow to come to the 9 underworld island filled Long Chen with worry. Although he had once slain Liao Bensong's avatar, that was an avatar that had descended across heavens. Its power was greatly reduced. There was no way to describe just how much weaker an avatar was compared to the true body. Reporting to the palace master, "This is our first batch of disciples to pass the killing trial in this generation," said an elder reverently. Liao Bensong's gaze swept over everyone. When his divine sense swept over Long Chen, he paused slightly. Just as he was about to speak, the gate beside the lightning pool opened and thousands of disciples walked in, led by a world king. He then bowed to Liao Bensong. "Palace master, the disciples that passed the trial are all here. Of the 30 million disciples, a total of 8,972 passed. Please look over them." Only 8,972 passed from 30 million disciples. Long Chen gasped inside. The 9 underworld hall's trials were too bloody. This was nothing more than one branch of the 9 underworld hall, but it already had so many people. The 9 underworld hall truly had an immense foundation and power. These 8,972 people had only gained the privilege of the lightning pool tempering. After that, they had to go through the rest of the trials. It was unknown just how many of them would survive. It could be said that the selection of the 9 underworld hall was incomparably cruel. But Liao Bensong actually had so many followers. If it was someone else who did this, they would have long since run out of believers. "Greetings, Palace Master." Those disciples all knelt on the ground. The person before them was their god, so these disciples that were normally numb to everything finally showed some emotion. Their gazes were full of fanatical worship. In their hearts, Liao Bensong was an incomparable existence. He was their faith. He was what they entrusted their very souls to. They were fearless toward death because they knew that they would return to the embrace of their God after dying. That was their final home. Liao Bensong nodded and smiled at those disciples with gratification. Not bad. This generation's essence, qi, and spirit are excellent. There have been great advancements in terms of the physical body in particular. It seems that you, Qinming, have put in a great deal of effort. There are 2 people in the pool with exceptionally powerful blood qi. One of them even has the aura of a supreme bone on him, so it is very likely that he is on the verge of awakening the supreme bone. When the trial is over, bring the 2 of them over to see me. If they meet my standards, I'll take them as personal disciples. Liao Bensong pointed to Guoran and Long Chen's bodies that were floating in the pool. Clearly, he had sensed that the 2 of them were different as soon as he arrived. Long Chen continued to float there motionlessly. But inside, his heart was shaking. He already had Lei Linger cover up his, Guoran, and Xia Chen's aura. They were fully merged into the lightning sea just to prevent anyone from seeing any clues. But unexpectedly, this was unable to fool Liao Bensong. He instantly sensed that Guoran's aura was different. Perhaps if it weren't for Lei Linger's protection, Guoran's identity would have been exposed. Hearing that Liao Bensong might take them as personal disciples, the other disciples were all envious. As for that world king named Qinming, he hastily said, "If these 2 can enter your eyes, that would truly be a blessing for them. Don't worry, I will definitely look after them well." At this moment, the second group of disciples also entered the lightning pool, receiving its tempering. Watching as everything went as expected, Qinming asked, "Palace Master, why did you come here personally?" "Theft is never good, try looking at." "Come." Clearly, even this world king was unable to comprehend why Liao Bensong had shown up here. Liao Bensong said, "The star-peering heavenly mirror has given off some strange ripples, and the star-peering space suddenly produced a great deal of death qi. That's why I came to take a look." "Death qi? Impossible. I just checked it half a month ago. It must have been my mistake. Palace Master, please forgive me." Qinming quivered. It had to be known that the star-peering heavenly mirror was one of the 9 underworld hall's greatest treasures. Any careless mistake and he would definitely lose his life. "It has nothing to do with you. The star-peering heavenly mirror's problem has just occurred and I've already erased the death qi." Liao Bensong waved his hand dismissively. Qinming sighed with relief since Liao Bensong wasn't blaming him. But he was still confused. How can death qi appear within the star-peering heavenly mirror? Is it due to the puppets sealed inside? "I've checked the puppets as well, and there is no problem with them. That death qi, it's as if it comes from the star-peering heavenly mirror itself," said Liao Bensong solemnly. "It comes from the star-peering heavenly mirror? Wouldn't that mean its longevity has come to an end? But how can that be?" Qinming was shocked. The star-peering heavenly mirror was a divine item personally forged by fallen Daynite. It was used to spy on the 9 star heirs within the 9 heavens and 10 lands. However, it did not possess an item spirit. Due to that, it should have unlimited longevity. Normally, only a divine item with an item spirit would have any sort of longevity. If the item spirit was damaged, or if it failed in an attempt to break through, or if there was some change in the heavenly Daos, there were all kinds of risks that could cause the item spirit to die. Before the item spirit died, the divine item would produce death qi just like the spots that appeared on an old person as they grew old. It was a premonition of death. However, the star-peering heavenly mirror didn't possess an item spirit, so how could it suddenly produce death qi? This was something that Qinming was unable to figure out. "I am unable to determine the reason either. But don't worry, it has just produced the death qi. There shouldn't be any change within the next few thousand years. When the trial ends, I will ask fallen Daynite's disciple to come take a look. You deal with the trial for now," said Liao Bensong. Yes. Speaking of which, has there been any movement from that damn fatty's side? Asked Liao Bensong. That damn fatty he was referring to was naturally Enputa. We just received some information about it. Ji Wuming has awakened dual supreme bones in both hands, said Qinming. I knew that Ji Wuming's idiot little brother would be schemed to death by that damn fatty sooner or later, sneered Liao Bensong. There's also another piece of news. Ji Wuming's brother died in the hands of Long Chen's subordinate, reported Qinming. What? Long Chen has also come to the violet flame heaven. Liao Bensong instantly jumped. Chapter 3668. Long Chen sneered inside when he heard this. He hadn't just come to the violet flame heaven. He was actually right in front of him. Why didn't you inform me sooner? Demanded Liao Bensong. He was no longer calm. Chen Ming was so frightened that he directly knelt on the ground. Palace Master, please quell your anger. Haven't you been in seclusion all this time? I passed the information up long before this. Did you not see Disciple's letter once you left seclusion? Only then did Liao Bensong's expression soften. Rise. I wrongly blamed you. I have been busy helping Luocha awaken her supreme bone. Only once she awakens the supreme bone can her body endure the Luocha possession. Then she'll be able to unleash the Luocha race's terrifying abilities. But because of this, I didn't have time to deal with other things. I didn't expect that little brat Longchen to actually come to the violet flame heaven. Seeing that Liao Bensong wasn't blaming him, Qinming sighed with relief. He stood up. It seems that I have to congratulate Fairy Luocha on awakening her supreme bone. The Luocha secret arts from 10 million years ago will finally reappear within the 9 heavens and 10 lands. The current Luocha is no longer the old Luocha. However, she is still in seclusion. Once she comes out, a storm of blood will follow. By then, who cares about Long Chen or Ji Wuming? They can only quiver beneath Luocha's foot. Liao Bensong smiled proudly. He had full confidence in the 9 underworld Luocha. I'll make a trip and see if I can find out where that brat Long Chen is. You help me look after those 2 that I picked out. If they can easily pass the star-peering heavenly mirror trial, then once they recover, directly send them to the 9 underworld trials, ordered Liao Bensong. The 9 underworld trials? But Qinming was shocked. The 9 underworld trials were the 9 underworld hall's most difficult trials. Countless geniuses had entered, but the only one to pass in the last 3 million years was the 9 underworld Luocha. That was why she was given that title. I don't require them to pass all the trials. As long as they can pass the first 5, it's enough. The last 4 can be omitted. I want them to be Luocha's attendants in the future. But it's up to them if they have that power. Do as I say. After saying that, Liao Bensong suddenly vanished. Yes. Chen Ming still bowed respectfully even though Liao Bensong was gone. After a while, he also vanished. This idiot, you're going to look for me when I'm right here? Let me just watch your show, sneered Long Chen. Liao Bensong wanted Long Chen to be his disciple? How shameless. Was he worthy of that honor? Just wait, this hive of his would quickly be torn apart. The only thing that Long Chen was unable to comprehend was why the star-peering heavenly mirror would suddenly produce death qi. Furthermore, according to Liao Bensong, this death qi first appeared when he entered the lightning pool. For the star-peering heavenly mirror to react so oddly, was it because it also knew that it wouldn't be surviving for long? Another day quickly passed. Xia Chen, Guoran, and the others were still unconscious. And the second batch of people were also all unconscious now. Big brother Long Chen, I've devoured those lightning beasts. Lei Linger sent word. Hearing this, Long Chen was startled. He saw that the lightning beasts at the core were still roaring and making a fuss. However, when he sensed them more carefully, he found that they were no longer the old lightning beasts. They were now Lei Linger's split bodies. Damn, that was fast. Long Chen was speechless. He had told Lei Linger to go slowly to not reveal anything that would expose them. It would be troublesome to be noticed. However, Lei Linger was excited, and when she reached the point of being able to control half of the lightning pool's energy, her attention turned to those lightning beasts. She was very smart. She placed her own spiritual mark on those lightning beasts bit by bit. Just like slowly boiling a frog, she gained control of them bit by bit before devouring their energy. She then used her own split bodies to replace them. In the end, she came to control all the lightning here, which meant that this entire lightning pool was at her disposal. When she returned to Long Chen's body, this entire lightning pool would vanish. We are calm. Find us on Google. Big Brother Long Chen, do you want to kill these people? I can kill them with the snap of my finger right now, said Lei Linger. There naturally was no chance that they could resist. They were all unconscious, so their life and death was entirely up to Lei Linger. Don't kill them yet. Otherwise, the following act won't be played. But you can place some time bombs in their bodies for now. Perhaps once their blood chi reaches a certain level, it will automatically detonate Thunder Force. At that time, they won't even have a corpse left, said Long Chen. Hee, that's a good idea. I'll place lightning seeds in their bodies right now. Lei Linger giggled. She was in an excellent mood right now. After devouring so much lightning, her spirituality seemed to have increased. She had gained more of an extroverted personality. Just as Lei Linger was placing lightning seeds in these people's bodies, Long Chen snuck his way into the core. He then came to the giant heavenly pillar. This was a stone pillar that was covered in natural Dao runes. When Long Chen arrived, Lei Linger appeared beside him as well. Big Brother Long Chen, I've checked this pillar. It contains natural lightning runes and can convey lightning. The lightning clouds in the 9 heavens are up above, and there are magnetic ores down below. The ores are drawing the lightning from the clouds up above through the stone pillar to form this lightning sea. The lightning clouds, the lightning pillar, and the magnetic ores are all necessary to form this special location. We can't take them. As for the runes on the lightning pillar, they aren't useful to me. Lei Linger told Long Chen everything she knew about this place. So that's the case. Long Chen was a bit disappointed. He had thought about taking this stone pillar and making another lightning pool for Lei Linger. However, if Lei Linger was saying this, then he could only scrap that idea. This lightning pool was a natural treasured land that no man could create. Alright, then when we're leaving, destroy those natural runes on the pillar. That way, the lightning clouds and the magnetic ores down below will be useless. If they couldn't be taken, then they could be broken. Otherwise, if they were left, they would only help raise more killing machines. Hee, a minor matter. I can handle it. Lei Linger giggled and got to work. On the 3rd day, Xiaqin, Guoran, and the assassins began to wake up. Once they awoke, they felt invigorated. Their blood chi was flowing vigorously, and their minds were refreshed. It felt like they had transformed. Guoran was also given a pleasant surprise. His physical body was originally very powerful, but now it was strengthened once more. As a result, his blood chi was stronger. Also, the stronger he was, the better he would be at controlling his supreme bone. Xiaqin also made huge gains. With Lei Linger looking after him, his soul energy had gone through repeated tempering through the lightning. It was now completely pure. When he used talismans in the future, there would no longer be the slightest delay. Everything would go according to his will. The star-peering heavenly mirror trial is open. Just then, an icy voice rang out and a spatial gate opened on the side of the lightning sea. When it opened, a torrential battle will crash down on all of them. Chapter 3669. When the spatial gate opened, Long Chen's group of 3, along with the other assassins from the first batch of the trial, silently walked over to it. Once they were all through, the spatial gate shut behind them. All of them vanished. Something seems off with the lightning pool? The elder in charge of activating the star-peering heavenly mirror trial suddenly found that the aura of the lightning pool was a bit different from before. When he got close, his expression suddenly changed. The lightning pool was already dry. The sight on the surface was actually a kind of illusion. But then, the disciples were still unconscious, just floating in the air. They had no idea what was happening. "Wake up!" shouted the elder. Following this roar, those assassins were startled awake. Just as they woke up, their bodies instantly exploded. Over 8,000 disciples bizarrely self-detonated. What is going on? The elder cried out, horrified. Just then, the towering pillar that stood at the core of the lightning sea shattered. Countless cracks covered it. In front of that elder's appalled gaze, it crumbled and collapsed. Quick, inform Island Master Chenming. Something major has happened. Long Chen didn't even have time to look at his surroundings before he felt a gust of wind. A fist smashed toward him, and the immense power was so oppressive that he couldn't breathe. Boom. Long Chen also unleashed a punch. A large man then appeared in front of Long Chen. This man was tall and muscular with arms thicker than a normal person's leg. He had long hair and a square face, and his eyebrows were thick and sharp. However, his gaze was lightless. His chi was like a wild lion. At this moment, battle intent overflowed out of him, and his blood chi was like an erupting volcano. With a roar, another fist smashed toward Long Chen. Boom. Long Chen sighed inside. This was also a 9-star heir. Regretfully, he had long since died, and his physical body was turned into a puppet. Even though he was dead, his battle intent had not extinguished yet. They had another fierce clash. However, this attack was clearly several times stronger than the first. After this blow, that 9-star heir roared and 6 stars appeared behind him, forming a hexagon. His aura then grew explosively by dozens of times. Clearly, everything was under the control of the 9 Underworld Hall. The first 2 attacks restricted the power of the 9-star heirs, giving the 9 Underworld Hall's assassins time to get used to their power. Otherwise, if this 9-star heir instantly summoned the 6-star battle armor, these assassins would mostly be killed right at the start. Long Chen raised a hand to block the incoming fist. After that, a 7-colored divine ring appeared behind him. This time, there was no heaven-shaking explosion. That 9-star heir's power simply flowed into Long Chen's body, and a bridge formed between them. They were capable of sharing their power. At this moment, that 9-star heir's body quivered. His listless eyes lit up ever so slightly. You are also a 9-star heir? His voice was rough and almost unintelligible. However, as a fellow 9-star heir, Long Chen was able to understand him. Long Chen nodded. That 9-star heir's face then twitched a few times. It seemed that he wanted to smile, but his face was too stiff to do so. Good, very good. Avenge us. Although he had been turned into a puppet, his battle will had not extinguished. The 9 Underworld Hall had intentionally preserved this battle intent in order to perpetuate a flexible fighting force. To do this, they must preserve at least the slightest consciousness of the puppet. Because of this, the 9-star heir also knew that he was already dead. He couldn't control his body. All he could do was slay the 9 Underworld Hall's disciples that came to this trial. This was a huge humiliation to the proud 9-star heirs, but he was powerless to change things. This pain was something that perhaps only Long Chen, a fellow 9-star heir, could understand. Brother, go in peace. Leave everything to me. Long Chen nodded solemnly. A hint of gratification then appeared in that 9-star heir's eyes. The next moment his battle will extinguished and his body slowly fell. This man that had been enslaved for countless years finally rested. When his body fell, it gradually turned into dust, eventually vanishing without a trace. Chen Ming arrived in front of the lightning sea. When he saw that it was dry and the pillar was destroyed, he was dumbfounded. He had lived for countless years but had never seen such a thing before. Look at the star-peering heavenly mirror. Chen Ming hastily took out a formation disc, and images appeared on it. It was the image of Long Chen and the others entering the star-peering heavenly mirror. However, following that, a scene that he didn't dare to believe appeared. The 2 disciples that Liao Bensong had told him to keep an eye on, Long Chen and Guoran, suddenly vanished from the sight of his formation disc. He was unable to see the situation inside the star-peering heavenly mirror. A bad feeling suddenly rose within Chen Ming. He then saw a sight that gave him chills. All the disciples that entered the star-peering heavenly mirror had just encountered the 9-star heir puppets when their bodies suddenly exploded. They were wiped out. Quick! Inform the palace master. Lock down the star-peering heavenly mirror trial, shouted Chen Ming in horror. The entire 9 underworld island was thrown into chaos. An ear-piercing alarm screeched throughout every corner of the island. Boom! A talisman in Long Chen's hand exploded. The star-peering heavenly mirror tried to transport him out, but this talisman stopped it. Long Chen then appeared in front of a giant mirror. This giant mirror was floating within space. The stars appeared incredibly minuscule in front of it. Standing before it, Long Chen saw 9 giant star clusters and seas of stars below the clusters. The 9 star clusters were the 9 heavens, and at the core of the 9 star clusters was a black area. He could vaguely see something, but he was unable to see it clearly. Below the 9 heavens were the star seas. He could see a mysterious layer of mist separating them. That mist was the wall of ascension, the wall which separated the immortal world and the mortal world. Through the star-peering heavenly mirror, Long Chen saw the mortal world's stars had chains binding them. Calm for the original. Those chains were spread everywhere. Only a very small portion of star fields didn't have those chains. At the end of those chains was the dark area at the heart of the 9 heavens. When he looked at the edges, Long Chen's heart suddenly pounded wildly. At the edge of the universe were 4 giant figures. They seemed to be slumbering beasts. Moreover, behind them was endless darkness. That darkness seemed to also be concealing something. In that instant, the fearless Long Chen felt terror wash over him. His hair stood on end, and sweat soaked his clothes. Long Chen felt like he was seeing something taboo about the world. It was as if something terrifying within that darkness was looking back at him. His heart had never pounded so hard. His soul ached with pain. It felt like needles were stabbing his eyes, and fresh blood poured out of them. He knew that he was looking at something he shouldn't see. But he continued to look. He wanted to know what was at the core of the 9 heavens. Suddenly, the star-peering heavenly mirror quivered. An immense force of rejection tried to send Long Chen out. As a result, his expression changed. He was out of time. Long Chen clenched his teeth and stabbed the black dagger into the star-peering heavenly mirror. Chapter 3670. Long Chen had originally thought that with the illusion formation that Xia Chen set up right before they left, the enemies would be deceived for at least a while. After all, no one else would be entering the trial while they were there. He hadn't expected someone to specifically take a look at the lightning pool. As a result, as soon as he looked closer, the illusion formation was broken. Everything was exposed. This power of expulsion was clearly trying to bring him out. At this moment, a black dagger appeared in his hand, and he stabbed it into the star-peering heavenly mirror with all his might. Bang! What shocked Long Chen was that this mysterious dagger that had never failed to break any defense actually failed to pierce the star-peering heavenly mirror. A powerful backlash then shook Long Chen's blood qi. He almost lost hold of the black dagger. Not good. Long Chen had never expected this. He had absolute confidence in the black dagger, but it disappointed him today. However, this strike from the black dagger did cause a thumb-sized nick on the flat surface of the mirror. Seeing that nick, Long Chen put away the dagger and pulled out the Minghong saber, preparing to attack the broken part. However, before he even attacked, cracks formed from that nick, instantly spreading through the entire star-peering heavenly mirror. This mirror that reached even the stars in the heavens shattered with a final boom. A mirror that had stood for countless years, overlooking the 9 heavens and 10 lands, was finally broken. Despite instinctively using its full power to resist Long Chen's full power attack, it was unable to defend against that dagger in the end. The star-peering heavenly mirror shattered, transforming into astral motes that dissipated into the cracks of space. The power from its explosion made Long Chen crash into a spatial wall and cough up blood. After that, he was forced out of the space of the star-peering heavenly mirror. When Long Chen reappeared on the 9 underworld island, a vast power unfurled and a ripple caused the world to flip. Waves from the sea soared so high that they swallowed up the river of stars. Wherever the ripple spread, devastation followed. Mountains were turned into flat land, and the mist covering this land was instantly blown apart. Enduring this ripple, Long Chen's body was almost torn apart. Even as violet qi circulated throughout his body, He was unable to stop cracks from spreading across his body. The power of the star-peering heavenly mirrors shattering almost crushed him. Fortunately, being blown back reduced a portion of the power. As he was blown further back, the pressure decreased. Long Chen then coughed up blood as he resisted with all of his power. At the same time, the primal chaos space's life energy poured into his body, helping him recover. As he was blown back, Long Chen saw countless 9 underworld hall experts fleeing for their lives. But it was useless. They were quickly caught up by the ripple and blasted into nothingness. Long Chen could sense Xia Chen and Guo Ran's positions. However, he wasn't worried about them. They were already forced out of the star-peering heavenly mirror before the explosion occurred. They were also fleeing, but Guo Ran had his supreme bone, and Xia Chen had countless life-protecting talismans. At most, they would only be slightly injured. Long Chen was flying for several breaths' time before the pressure finally lightened enough for him to breathe. He then checked his body and was shocked to find that the majority of his bones were broken. His meridians were also damaged. A quick look at calm will leave you more fulfilled. The star-peering heavenly mirror's explosion was too terrifying. It had almost blasted him apart. But no matter what, the star-peering heavenly mirror was destroyed. He had accomplished his mission. Die! Suddenly, the void quivered and a sword pierced through the void with icy killing intent. Even before the sword arrived, a terrifying killing intent completely locked Long Chen down. Qin Ming. Long Chen's heart shook as he recognized his attacker. It was the island master of the 9 underworld island, the strongest person here. You weren't killed by the explosion? Long Chen snorted and swung the Minghong saber at him. Boom. Long Chen grunted. A burst of pain struck his arm, and the Minghong saber almost flew away. He was too heavily injured. Long Chen, it's you? After that exchange, the furious Qin Ming was even further incensed. The explosion of the star-peering heavenly mirror had blown apart Long Chen's mask, revealing his true appearance. Hence, Long Chen was instantly recognized. If it wasn't me, who else would it be? Long Chen might be injured, but he was still calm. You're quite brave. But you won't be escaping today. Qin Ming roared. Suddenly, rays of white divine light shot out of the sea, covering this land in a giant heavenly net. Faith energy? Long Chen was a bit surprised. The island was already destroyed, and yet the faith energy remained. It seemed that their divine pool was beneath the sea. 9 underworld heaven merger, divine descent. Qin Ming formed hand seals, and a giant divine platform appeared behind him. A divine statue then showed up on that platform. It was Liao Bensong. When Long Chen saw that statue, his expression finally changed. Qin Ming was planning on using the statue to summon Liao Bensong. If Liao Bensong was brought back, then considering that this was his domain, the 3 of them would really be doomed. Old fellow, taste my fist. Just then, the void quivered and Guo Ran came charging over, his supreme bone quivering as he unleashed a punch. Boom. Qin Ming blocked with his sword. As a result, milky white light erupted and both of them were forced back. What? Guo Ran was shocked. The full power attack of his supreme bone was something that not even half-step divine venerates could block. But the late-stage world king Qin Ming had blocked it. He is Liao Bensong's follower and can use Liao Bensong's faith energy. He can bring out more power from a world domain divine item. Don't waste time on him. Destroy that statue, shouted Long Chen. Xia Chen was already moving before Long Chen finished speaking. 7 talismans shot out at the same time, landing on the statue. Their runes rapidly lit up. Explode! Xia Chen shouted, and the 7 talismans detonated at the same time. The void collapsed. However, Long Chen was shocked to find that the statue wasn't damaged in the slightest. Fools! This faith energy is condensed from countless generations of believers of the 9 underworld island. It can only be destroyed with other faith energy. All your efforts are meaningless. Just wait for the palace master to execute you, shouted Qin Ming furiously. Just now, Guo Ran's punch had almost made him cough up blood. All 3 of them were absolutely terrifying. Kill him first then. Maybe when he dies, this statue will disappear," shouted Long Chen. Xia Chen and Guo Ran shot after Chen Ming together. Chen Ming's expression twitched. He suddenly shot straight toward Long Chen. It seemed that he felt that the easier target right now was Long Chen. Die! As a result, he had just arrived in front of Long Chen when a pretty maiden in a violet dress stabbed a lightning spear toward his head. Chapter 3671. When the lightning spear appeared, this entire space became a lightning sea. Chen Ming was shocked. He was instantly locked down by this lightning sea. "So you're the one who stole the lightning sea?" Chen Ming was shocked and enraged. He finally understood that the lightning sea's disappearance and the destruction of the star-peering heavenly mirror were done entirely by Long Chen. "Palace Master, bestow upon me your divine protection. Protect your most loyal servant." Chen Ming howled and swept his sword out. Faith energy gathered, forming a white battle armor around his body. This battle armor was made entirely out of faith energy. Boom! Touching it, Lei Linger's spear quivered and countless lightning runes exploded. Chen Ming then screamed as his arms were blown apart. His sword went flying. But surprisingly, the faith battle armor that he was wearing was completely undamaged. Just as he said, only another faith energy could destroy this faith energy. Of course, just because the battle armor was fine didn't mean that the wearer was fine. He was seriously injured inside the battle armor. He hacked up 3 mouthfuls of blood that contained fragments of his insides. Clearly, this armor composed of faith energy was not capable of fully blocking Lei Linger's power. After Lei Linger's attack, Guo Ran's fist smashed into Chen Ming's back. Chen Ming then grunted. His spine was broken and his body curled, the back of his head almost touching his ankle. The next moment, Chen Ming let out a miserable shriek. Perhaps it was because Guo Ran had struck him in some weak spot, or perhaps the power of the Supreme Bone was invading his body. In any case, he seemed to be in unbearable pain. After receiving consecutive serious wounds, the divine statue that he had summoned began to fluctuate, occasionally growing dim. Its aura was unstable. "Keep beating him up, and Liao Binsong can't descend. Attack fast, not powerfully," shouted Xia Chen. He flung out a heaven-shaking talisman, and it exploded on Chen Ming's body. Lei Linger, Guo Ran, and Xia Chen repeatedly attacked. Although Chen Ming had his protective armor, he was unable to stop their attacks. The 3 of them didn't give him any breathing room. Chen Ming was hacking up blood, not having any power to retaliate. As for the countless assassins of the 9 Underworld Island, they were all dead. He was the only one to survive thanks to his faith energy. He had no helpers. "Just wait, when the Palace Master descends, all of you will die miserable deaths." Under the crazy assault from Guo Ran and the others, Chen Ming could only let himself be beaten. He had no room to retaliate or flee. Right now, he was entirely relying on his protective faith armor to survive. He was also igniting his longevity just to hold on. But even then, he wouldn't be able to last. Unfortunately, he couldn't do anything else. If he did let Long Chen and the others leave, he would still die a miserable death. It just wouldn't be at the hands of Long Chen and the others. Hence, he had to stop them. As Lei Linger, Guo Ran, and Xia Chen attacked Chen Ming, Long Chen activated the 7-color divine ring, focusing on recovering as quickly as possible. Faith energy was an ephemeral kind of energy. Even if Long Chen joined in, it would be meaningless. It was enough for the 3 of them to stall Chen Ming. When an incense stick's worth of time passed, Long Chen's body was fully recovered. Before the breakthrough, such wounds would take at least a few days to heal. But after the violet tower star appeared, the 7-color divine ring was able to grasp the power of heaven and earth to heal his body. Adding on the primal chaos space's healing powers, he rapidly recovered. The primal chaos space healed his physical body, while the outer world's energy helped him repair the damage to his soul and mind. Thanks to both aspects, his recovery speed was astonishing. Guo Ran, Xia Chen, and Lei Linger were still crazily attacking Chen Ming. After fighting for so long, they found that this faith armor was able to absorb and reflect a portion of their power. But at the same time, There was another portion that injured Qinming, who was inside the armor. A stronger attack wasn't very useful. After a certain limit, the damage was capped and any further power was wasted. Hence, the three of them maintained a rapid attack pace. Qinming was already at his limit at this time. He originally looked to be 40, but now his hair had turned white, and his face was covered in wrinkles. His blood qi also withered, signs that the fire of his soul was about to extinguish. However, he was tenacious. He ended up attaching a part of his spiritual strength to the divine statue. By extracting that bit of spiritual strength slowly, he was able to just barely endure. A quick look at calm will leave you more fulfilled. At this moment, Long Chen charged into the sky with his dagger and cut the streams of white light coming out of the sea. The dagger quivered. This net of light seemed to be like cotton, and it was impossible to cut through it. It simply bent. As expected, there was nothing in this world that was absolutely unrivaled. At the very least, this dagger was unable to damage this net of faith. Faith was truly a mysterious thing. Even Long Chen was unable to explain this kind of power. Bang! Guo Ran's fist smashed into Qinming's body. However, this time, it didn't cause any explosive sound. Instead, it let out a muffled grunt. Boom! Qinming along with his faith armor exploded. Guo Ran and Xiaqin cheered. With Qinming's death, the statue and heavenly net would vanish. This was Xiaqin and Guo Ran's first time encountering faith energy, and they hadn't expected it to be so powerful. A late-stage world king servant had managed to exhaust them just to kill him. If it was Liao Bensong instead, just how powerful would he be? Just then, even as Qinming died, the divine statue was lighting up. Cracks covered it. Success! Xiaqin and Guo Ran both thought that it was about to shatter. However, the scene that they were expecting never occurred. The statue's surface began to fall off chunk by chunk, and it began to reveal a figure beneath it. Starry Sea births violet qi. Long Chen shouted and instantly shot through the air, slashing the Minghong saber at the statue. He didn't even have time to communicate with Xiaqin and Guo Ran. Boom! Long Chen's saber landed right on the statue's head. After that, fragments of the statue flew out in every direction. Xiaqin and Guo Ran's expressions suddenly changed. Even as the fragments flew out, they saw a hand grab the Minghong saber. They then saw a figure. When they saw his face, the two of them cried out in shock. Liao Bensong. Liao Bensong still managed to arrive somehow. However, he couldn't arrive in time to save Qinming. A divine radiance shone behind Liao Bensong's head, and the world's faith energy prostrated itself toward him. He seemed to be the ruler of this world, an existence that no one could even think of defying. Right now, Liao Bensong's expression was ashen and his gaze was locked onto Long Chen hatefully. His killing intent rose. You little bastards, you dare to destroy my star-peering heavenly mirror and kill my followers. Today I will make you beg for death. Rumbling rang out and a giant figure slowly rose out of the sea. Chapter 3672. A giant lotus rose out of the sea. It was so gigantic that it filled the entire sky. The lotus was flawless. It was what was emitting the white light, which was the condensation of faith energy. When it appeared, the net of faith energy in the sky instantly multiplied in power. This lotus was the 9 underworld islands' divine pool, the thing that stored their faith energy. As it contained the mental energy of countless generations of 9 underworld hunters, it had enough power to shake the entire world. Even Long Chen felt a suffocating feeling. They were facing the faith energy of countless generations. It made them seem completely insignificant. Liao Bensong stood on top of the lotus. Under his divine radiance, he appeared grand and noble. The current him was a high and mighty existence, one that made others automatically feel the urge to kowtow toward him. This was the power of a god. It was the result of gathering small bits of faith energy into a soaring tower, and the god stood at the top of it. People used faith energy to turn him into an incomparably glorious existence and then worshipped him, making him become the mental pillar of his believers. He was the light that lit up their paths. Long Chen, You destroyed my star-peering heavenly mirror. Are you really going to force this god to personally capture you? Liao Bensong coldly overlooked the three of them from atop his faith lotus. His voice echoed throughout heaven and earth echoed his voice back. It was like the world was supporting him. This god? Your throne hasn't even appeared. In other words, this is not your true body but another avatar. A little avatar also dares to be arrogant? Do you think that I am a 3-year-old child? It's not like I haven't seen gods before. Cut the crap coming from your donkey mouth. Let us 3 brothers experience just how powerful a so-called god is. Sneered Long Chen. Liao Bensong's aura was incredible, but Long Chen still saw a glimmer of hope. That glimmer of hope was the fact that his throne had yet to appear. Based on his time with Leng Yueyin and Ming Zongyue, he knew that in order for a god to unleash their full power, they had to have their throne with them. Furthermore, in order to use the throne's full power, a god had to come with their true body. An avatar was unable to do so. Although Long Chen didn't know what Liao Bensong's throne was, he knew that this lotus before him was definitely not his throne. At the same time as he saw hope, he also saw just how terrifying true gods were. This was the greatest difference between immortal cultivators and god cultivators. Other than a bit of Liao Bensong's own power here, most of it came from his endless believers. Immortal cultivators relied on their own power, while god cultivators relied on borrowing power from countless people. Thus, the branching immortal and god paths were formed. God cultivators gathered countless grains of sand to make a soaring tower, while immortal cultivators relied entirely on their own efforts. Immortal cultivators viewed god cultivators as con men who tricked others into giving them their faith energy, while god cultivators viewed immortal cultivators as destitute weaklings who didn't even have the power to have their own believers, while being envious of their accomplishments. However, it was publicly recognized throughout the 9 heavens and 10 lands that god cultivators were stronger than immortal cultivators. But the precondition for that was that they were in the same realm. Even so, immortal cultivators had their own strong points. They advanced faster than god cultivators because they didn't need to gather faith energy. Faith energy was an energy source but also a restriction. It restricted the cultivation speed of god cultivators, especially upon reaching the World King realm. After that, their cultivation speed fell even more. Unless you had the support of a powerful backer, all god cultivators who reached that point would have their cultivation speed thrown into the distance by immortal cultivators. Even though their realm couldn't keep up, in terms of true combat power, god cultivators were still unrivaled in the same realm. Some powerful god cultivators could rely on a thick foundation of faith energy to challenge people across realms. Thus, the current Liao Bensong might only be a peak world king who hadn't even become a half-step divine venerate, but the pressure that he gave off was even greater than the half-step divine venerates that Long Chen and the others had encountered. Even though his current self was an avatar, there was simply no way to compare them. Only now that he was facing Liao Bensong did Guoran understand what Long Chen had been saying. Experts like Liao Bensong and Imputa were truly terrifying. Seeing that Long Chen wasn't giving up, Liao Bensong sneered, "Little ant, you dare to say such big words. It's too bad that the 9 underworld Luocha hasn't come out of seclusion yet. Otherwise, I'd have her personally end you. Someone who has been defeated dares to come again? Have you already forgotten how she screamed in my hands while I destroyed your avatars?" Sneered Long Chen. At that time, Long Chen had captured the 9 underworld Luocha and was burning her soul. Imputa and Liao Bensong both attacked to save her, only to result in Imputa using Liao Bensong to distract the others while he himself fled. He caused Liao Bensong to lose 2 avatars. Theft is never good, try looking at. Calm. When Long Chen brought that up, Liao Bensong's face twisted with fury. That was his life's greatest humiliation. Hence, his anger soared. It was because of that idiot Imputa wanting to spare your life that things went that way. But today, there is no Imputa present. Do you think that you can live? Roared Liao Bensong. What a thick face. So you push the blame for last time's failure entirely on Imputa? To tell the truth, I really do feel a bit threatened by Imputa because his schemes are quite sinister. If the 9 Underworld Island was his domain, I would not dare to come here with my current strength, said Long Chen disdainfully. Even as Long Chen spoke disdainfully, he was fully circulating his astral energy inside, preparing to enter his strongest state. They had to fight today. Fortunately, against the current Liao Bensong, he felt that they should have some hope. If it was against Imputa instead, they would be doomed. Imputa wouldn't even give them a chance to fight him head-on. He would directly scheme them to death. Guoran and Xiachen were also tense. They were all in a combat-ready state. They knew that they were facing the greatest challenge of their lives, so they didn't dare to be the slightest bit careless. Bullshit. Are you saying that I'm inferior to that damn fatty? Liao Bensong was incensed by this provocation. Although I really loathe that damn fatty, I have to admit that he truly is powerful. He's also a schemer and knows how to endure. As for you, you're an idiot. I don't know why Lord Brahma cares about you. Why does he even accept you as his dog? Are you still stalling because you want to apply mental pressure on me? You want my mind to fracture so you can do a soul search and see my secrets? What a shame that other than roaring, you have no other ability. To tell the truth, I'm unable to keep watching as an idiot like you acts like some brilliant strategist. You don't need to keep up this terrible act. If you're trying to break my mind, you overestimate yourself too much, sneered Long Chen. In terms of intelligence, Liao Bensong simply wasn't on the same level as Imputa. Ignorant brat, die. Liao Bensong finally lost his patience after being exposed. As he waved his hand, a sword appeared in his hand and swung toward the 3 of them. Chapter 3677, Bastards. You goddamn bastards. You dare to plunder my Soaring Dragon Company. Just wait. An expert from the Soaring Dragon Company let out a hysterical cry. They had just been plundered by Long Chen a couple of months ago. It had been over 2 months, so they had thought that it was over and they could rebuild, starting over. But then, Xia Chen and Guoran once more plundered them. Seeing the treasures that they had prepared with a great deal of effort be taken away just like this, their hearts were dripping blood. They cursed furiously. Fools, we're only plundering you because we like you. Just be happy that we're choosing to loot you. Guoran actually returned a disdainful look after snatching their treasury. Be happy? That expert almost passed out from anger. He pointed at Xia Chen and Guoran, howling, "If you have guts, report your names." "Nope. I'd rather piss you off." Guoran was just about to say his little verse when Xia Chen dragged him away. After all, they wanted to keep harvesting this plump harvest. If they knew that Long Chen had returned to the chaotic Star Sea, the other strongholds of the Soaring Dragon Company would immediately move their treasuries. If they didn't say who they were, perhaps the Soaring Dragon Company would get to harvest some more. But if their status was exposed, the harvest would be gone. "Just wait, our Soaring Dragon Company isn't so easy to bully," shouted that expert. Regretfully, a little 3rd Heaven Stage World King was unable to retaliate in front of Guoran and Xiachen. He could only watch as the 2 of them laughed and took their treasury. They continued on their way, looting what they could. But on the 8th stronghold, they ended up with nothing. Then they continued to end up empty. Clearly, the Soaring Dragon Company wasn't so foolish as to just let them continue plundering. They moved away their treasuries, not giving Long Chen and the others a chance to plunder them. Not only did Guoran and Xiachen end up with nothing, but there were also experts lying in wait for them. However, those experts were nothing more than mid-stage world kings, and they were powerless to do anything to them. As a result, Xia Chen and Guoran also entered the Soaring Dragon Company's wanted list. This was the new big news to strike the chaotic Star Sea after Long Chen. People found it shocking but also funny. Before this, Long Chen had practically swept through the entire chaotic Star Sea plundering the Soaring Dragon Company. That wave had just passed and they hadn't even caught Long Chen. But just as things calmed down and Long Chen left, the Soaring Dragon Company's new stuff was stolen by these 2 bandits. Just what kind of calamity had the Soaring Dragon Company provoked? They're now too scared of being looted. Stop wasting the effort. Let's go to the Huayun Trading Company. Long Chen knew that the Soaring Dragon Company would be too scared, and he wouldn't get any ill-gotten gains during this time. Through multiple transportations, they directly arrived at the Yu Prefecture. The Yu Prefecture could be said to be the safest prefecture within the chaotic Star Sea, as well as the most prosperous prefecture. That was because the Yu Prefecture was overseen by the Huayun Trading Company, so it was the safest place in the chaotic Star Sea. Long Chen went directly to the headquarters of the Huayun Trading Company. President Qi Fong, it's been a long time. Your grace and beauty only continue to grow. Long Chen greeted Qi Fong with a laugh. He felt particularly close with the Huayun Trading Company's people. He could have no misgivings while talking to them. Mr. Long Chen is praising me. An old woman like me? You're making flowers bloom in my heart. Last time, Mr. Long Chen left without a word, so I've been worried about you. How have you been? Asked Qi Fong with a smile. I suppose I've been all right. Thanks to your blessing, I've managed to make a bit of wealth. I'm preparing to sell this this wealth here, said Long Chen. Although Qi Fong also knew that the things in Long Chen's hands were not obtained through proper channels, in the end, the Huayun Trading Company was a business with its own reputation. He couldn't directly say that he was disposing of stolen goods. Long Chen then introduced Guoran and Xiachen to Qi Fong. He also had them give a list of what they urgently needed at this time. After that, they handed over all the treasures that they had plundered during this time, only leaving what they needed for their research. They had a clearance sale of everything else. Qi Fong had previously helped Long Chen do the same thing and had experience in this regard. Hence, she didn't say anything about it. She simply smiled and had people take an inventory of the loot. She also gave orders for her people to help gather the things on their lists. Gathering all of those treasures would probably take some time. So, Long Chen bade her farewell and brought the two of them to the Wine God Palace. It can be hard to make great work when it's stolen from. When they arrived at the Wine God Palace and saw the signboard on top of the gate, Guoran and Xiachen both sighed. It was a sigh of recollection. I wonder how everyone is. Guoran looked at the Wine God Palace and thought of the Martial Heaven continent. When he thought of his family, his eyes reddened. Xiachen was the same. Don't worry, they're definitely doing better than us. Once us brothers reach the peak, we can reunite with everyone. At that time, this world will have no more battles, no more grief. Long Chen patted their shoulders. The two of them nodded. They had heard that Long Chen had seen the Martial Heaven continent's people alive. They were in a new world, a world better than the Martial Heaven continent. Upon entering the Wine God Palace, Long Chen felt like he had returned to his own home. He smiled and waved at the Wine God Palace's disciples, introducing them to his brothers. When these disciples greeted them enthusiastically, Guoran and Xiachen both felt warm. The Wine God Palace's enthusiasm toward them was sincere, and these disciples' gazes were pure. They wouldn't look down on them due to cultivation base, status, or background. It was as if their eyes could see through a person's inner heart. They were people with magnanimous hearts. Sometimes, a single gaze could convey everything. This place was far away from the immortal world's fighting. It was a pure land where people could put down their defenses. They could be free and at ease. That feeling was incredibly rare, so Xiachen and Guoran instantly fell in love with this place, wishing to stay a lifetime here. Quite a few disciples immediately came to drag them away to appraise wine. They knew that Long Chen didn't know how to make wine, yet he was an expert at tasting wine. But Long Chen tactfully declined all of them with his thanks. Brother Long Chen, you finally arrived. If you still didn't come, I'd have been forced to go find you. Something major is coming. It's a huge opportunity, and if you miss it, you'll regret it for a lifetime. Before Long Chen arrived at Xia Guhong's abode, Xia Guhong's voice already rang out. He had long since been waiting for them at his door. Chapter 3678, Junior Brother Guoran Greets Big Brother. Big Brother, I've long since heard about your great name. Guoran was extremely emotional to see Xia Guhong, a hero whose name had shaken the world. It had to be known that Xia Guhong was a peerless hero in the All-Devil Star Field, a figure of legends and miracles. How could Guoran not be emotional to meet him? Guoran had only worshipped a few figures in this lifetime, and Xia Guhong was one of them. Most exciting of all was that this legendary figure was actually his boss's brother. Then wouldn't that mean that he was also his brother? That was a huge honor for him. Read the most.d version of this novel and other amazing translated novels from the original source at com. If the All Devil Starfield's people were to learn that he was brothers with Xia Guhong, wouldn't they view him like a god? Just how glorious would that be? Can you have some face? When you ascended to the All Devil Starfield, you were already this old. Just how long has it been? Demanded Long Chen. You can't put it that way. After ascending, I feel like his face grew even bigger than before, supplemented Xia Chen. Haha. Xia Guhong laughed. It's rare to have such good brothers. Come and drink some wine. Hee, many thanks, big brother. Guoran was delighted to be called brother by Xia Guhong. That was essentially recognizing them, so he was overjoyed. Xia Chen respectfully bowed towards Xia Guhong and called him big brother before entering his little hut. The four of them sat down. Xia Guhong then appraised Xia Chen and nodded, a trace of admiration appearing in his eyes. Not bad, not bad. Your soul energy is flawless. You've already entered a state of natural being. I have only met less than a handful of masters on the Talisman Dao who could reach this step at such a young age. What level of heavenly talisman refines the heart have you reached? As soon as Xia Guhong asked him that, Xia Chen felt even greater veneration for him. It had to be known that even within the heavenly talisman Starfield, not many people knew of heavenly talisman refines the heart. Even Gong Sun Xian was unaware of it. It was a kind of mental realm. There were a total of 9 levels, and this realm was differentiated by the heavenly Daos. Only someone whose mental realm had reached that level would understand it. Heavenly talisman refines the heart was an inexplicable law of the heavenly Daos. If you reached it, you would naturally understand. If you didn't reach it, explaining it would have no meaning. For Xia Guhong to mention it meant that he had also reached that realm. Although he wasn't a talisman cultivator, this was what it meant for all 10,000 Daos to reach the same place. The height that he had reached allowed him to see more things. Junior brother is foolish. Currently, I am only at the 3rd level. I have not managed to pass the 4th level, said Xia Chen shamefully. Xia Guhong looked at him and suddenly laughed. You haven't done Heavenly Talisman Refines the Heart recently, have you? Yes. Junior brother's mind has not been calm lately, so I haven't tried it. Xia Chen nodded. If you try, you will find that you can easily pass. You have passed that emotional obstacle, and you have seen through it clearly. The 4th level can be easily passed, said Xia Guhong. For Xia Guhong to say this, even Long Chen was stunned. Xia Guhong's sharp vision seemed to be able to see through everything. Many thanks for the reminder, big brother. Junior brother will try it later. Xia Chen was amazed. As expected of a legendary figure, his perception was absolutely terrifying. Nothing could be concealed from him. Big brother, you're so godly. Can you read this junior brother's fate? Will junior brother soon rise and stand out above all others? Seeing Xia Guhong turn to him, Guoran immediately smiled brightly. Xia Guhong smiled. You are a slacker, and you always think of taking shortcuts. It is fated that you will have difficulty ever standing out. However, you are quite smart. Knowing that you are a vine, you wrapped yourself around a large tree with limitless potential. You will rise with the tree. As long as you continue to follow the tree, you will also see the same scenery, the light and warmth. With the smallest price, you will obtain the greatest glory. Hee big brother, you really are amazing. You instantly saw through junior brother's thoughts. Guoran laughed mischievously. He didn't feel any sense of shame. He was pleased with himself, treating these words as praise. That's because I also had a junior brother like you by my side back in the day, sighed Xia Guhong. Where is he now? Is he seeing endless scenes of glory? Asked Guoran. No. He can no longer see anything. In order to save his big sister, he died at the hands of the all-devil race. That year, he was only 19. Xia Guhong seemed to sink into his memories, pain appearing in his eyes. Are you talking about the demon-forging genius Luo Zijuan? Luo Qingying's little brother? Asked Guoran, feeling startled. Correct. Someone whose forging talent was not at all inferior to Qingying, but refused to put in the effort. He spent all day studying odd things, pursuing some dream of instantly ascending to the heavens in one go. He really was similar to you. Xia Guhong looked at Guoran. Only then did Xia Chen and Long Chen learn that Luo Qingying had a little brother, and that he was Xia Guhong's brother-in-law. Big brother, I'm sorry. Guoran instantly felt embarrassed to have dragged out something so painful to Xia Guhong. Xia Guhong shook his head. It's fine. Everything is in the past. Furthermore, you've all done very well. You killed the all-devil race and sealed the channel. Things that we were unable to accomplish back in the day were accomplished by you. That means that you're even stronger than us from back then. Big brother, you know of it? Long Chen was surprised. The All-Devil Star Field was still locked in seclusion? No. The All-Devil Star Field is a place that hurt my heart. I naturally will keep an eye on it. To tell the truth, whenever I looked at it, I wanted to see how those fools destroy themselves. But you led the human race to victory. Now, I understand why Qingying didn't let me avenge her. I thought that it was for her family, but now I know. It was for me. She knew that my fury would not just befall the Luo clan. I would also kill the people who condemned me, leading the human race of the All-Devil Star Field to destruction. Perhaps back then, my actions were understandable, repaying enmity with enmity, kindness with kindness. But my actions were unable to hold up to the passage of time. When it comes to vision, I'm far from reaching Qingying's level. She sees further than me. She didn't let me avenge her for the human race and for myself. The reason I can understand now is because of you, Long Chen. I now understand what Qingying was thinking. Long Chen, you are more outstanding than me. Xia Guhong looked at Long Chen. Long Chen shook his head with a bitter smile. In your eyes, you think that my actions are correct. But perhaps thousands or tens of thousands of years in the future, these actions will no longer be considered correct. Big brother, you overestimate me. To tell the truth, I just do whatever I feel like. As for right or wrong, I'll leave it to others in history to judge. I'm just going to worry about myself. For Xia Guhong to praise him like this, Long Chen was feeling ashamed. How were his actions based on farsight? It was still the same old thing. Look indifferently on life and death, and just fight whoever tried to block him. Who cared about right or wrong? That's right, big brother. Wasn't there something urgent you were looking for me for? Asked Long Chen. Xia Guhong then turned serious and nodded. The great prophet has prophesied that in 1 month, the entrance to the 3,000 worlds will open. This is a rare golden age that appears only once every million years. You cannot miss it. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.